enough of Keanu. Yes, it's true. Whenever we see you in another movie, get to wishing that you were in them all. Our hearts cry out, Keanu, haven't aged a day in 30 years. Now we're looking back on your career. Can't get enough of Keanu.
What did Frasier do as a radio?
He was
I've never seen an episode of Frasier.
As a person who also has never seen an episode of Frasier,
I'm not alone.
I think that, well, like
What is
glimpses
up
of
with
stuff on
our
TV.
generation's weird?
You guys didn't watch Frasier?
No, but how did Frasier just come back into like the popular consciousness in the past like 4 years?
Pat, we're at the end of history, and so all pop culture is just this kind of slowly accumulating mass of detritus that sort of spits up out of the gutter every now and again. And something
it's like
very
Old Faithful.
Every now and again, something very specific is latched on.
But usually it's something like, oh, it's on Netflix, and people are just like rewatching it, you know, when they go to bed or whatever. But somehow Frasier's like, I feel like I hear people our age referencing it way more like in the past 4 years.
I think it's funny to talk about it ironically.
Well, it was like
But did they watch it? I didn't watch Frasier as a kid.
It's not about
No.
watching it. It's about the sort of like nostalgic ambience of remembering it just being on television when you were small. I think that's what a lot of...
I don't know.
like-
It seems like a lot of people are pretty well versed in the mythology of Frasier.
I mean, I've seen Frasier.
Sure. I mean, I've seen
you,
bits of Frasier.
you have a Frasier T-shirt.
Yeah.
I have a Niles Crane t-shirt.
Now,
Yes, but it is from the show Frasier. It's a Frasier T-shirt.
That's right, because his name's actually David Hyde Pierce.
and he's from Saratoga
he's from
Springs.
our-
He is the most famous alumnus of our high school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Went to the Yaddo.
But we're
retreat.
gonna beat that, right?
Yeah.
Because of this podcast.
Hey, David
yeah.
Hyde Pierce, we're coming for your spot. Okay?
People will talk about Saratoga Springs High School and be like, the guys who hosted that Keanu Reeves podcast.
and died tragically as soon as it was finished.
In
remembrance and memoriam.
Wait, can I bring up a significant news?
suicide.
What's that? Yeah.
We've been recording, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Of course we
Well,
have.
first of all, I want to say,
I just assume 100% of the time I'm being recorded.
no, you
Yeah.
don't, because you
very
say,
Gene
you say
Hackman.
things off mic that you know could not be recorded.
Yeah.
Matt's the problematic member of the podcast.
I'll never tell.
Well, he may be. No one can confirm.
Yeah. Is that true?
No, he's a sweetie. You don't know.
Yeah, or am I a big sweetie?
Yeah. But what I just wanted to say was, welcome to Can't Get Enough of Keanu, the internet's premier
Hello.
Keanu Reeves podcast, in which we explore the filmography of that great, ageless, enigmatic Canadian actor, movie by movie. I'm Patrick Willems.
I'm Jake Torpey.
I'm Matt Torpey.
And guys, we have, I think, multiple pieces of news that are worth discussing.
That is true. That is true. Let's talk about first an earlier incarnation, if you will, staying thematically tied to the movie we will talk about. An earlier incarnation of this podcast.
That news.
Yeah.
So last night, earth-shattering news hit the internet.
Yeah.
That I saw because someone posted it in our subreddit, r/Thrillums. Everyone go talk about this podcast there, please. And I got a notification about like a new post there.
Yeah.
And then I got very, very excited. Because so I've already been looking forward to. I'm pretty generally fairly lukewarm on Guy Ritchie as a filmmaker, but I've been excited about this movie that has already been announced that he's making called Cash Truck, an action heist movie starring Jason Statham.
And Ben Bailey, I think. Oh, sorry, Cash Cab. This is a bad joke.
That was I
Wow,
liked
there was
it.
dead
No,
silence. Jesus Christ. All right,
Sorry.
fine. This is strike one.
I
All right,
didn't know Ben Bailey's name, so I was like, "Is that who was that?"
Sorry,
an
that
actor?
was a Cash Cab joke.
I
and
liked
it,
it,
and
Jake.
it died.
Matt
Yeah,
appreciated
well,
it.
you didn't vocalize your enjoyment of it.
Well, it wasn't one of those laugh sort of jokes.
Yeah, it was like
It was a quietly nod, like appreciation.
It was a
Yeah.
mind chuckle. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But so, Cash Truck, great title. I want to see
Yeah.
Jason Statham rob a cash truck. But it was announced as the cast is getting fleshed out and where people are joining the ensemble.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our boy Josh Hartnett making a return to mainstream Hollywood studio films.
Pat, do we know which studio is going to be distributing this?
I think weirdly enough, I saw MGM, who I didn't
MGM.
even know was a functioning studio. I thought MGM was owned by someone else.
MGM is usually draws off a lot of archival stuff, but yeah, I didn't know that they were a functional one. They sort of own the rights to a lot of old IP. Like I think MGM kind of holds on to Rocky franchise.
Yeah,
and,
they're involved.
James Bond, maybe.
But no. No, not James Bond.
Oh well.
No, well,
I don't know.
Well, here's the headline
I'm not
on
the encyclopedia.
The headline on Deadline from 2 days ago says MGM swoops for a Guy Ritchie thriller Cash Truck starring Jason Statham.
What does that mean? Swoops.
It says that
Puts in an early bid.
This isn't like an exclusive article. MGM has taken domestic and select international rights on Cash Truck, the Miramax action thriller.
Okay.
And so now I'm just wondering.
Joshy's back at Miramax. Oh wow. Interesting.
But of course, like
couldn't get enough
what
of it,
is
huh?
Miramax now? Because obviously
it's-
the infamous Weinsteins left Miramax a long time ago because Miramax, I believe, remained owned by Disney because then they started the Weinstein company.
I'm sure it's completely, just in a staff sense, fully restructured. But why hold on to the name at this point? Why not rebrand, you know?
Well, it's probably just some sort of like cost-benefit analysis of the brand itself. you
Also,
know?
considering
Yeah.
that Miramax got its name from the Weinstein's parents. It was like Miriam and Max, and they combined. That's how they got the name Miramax.
right.
Miriam. Yeah. Maximilian.
I love Maximilian as the full name for Max.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because it's that or Maxwell, you know? You don't
I'm really curious now. Okay, Jake, look this up. Who owns Miramax right now?
Yeah,
because it
let's see.
used to be a subsidiary of Disney.
Is
And
Jason Statham gonna rob the cash truck or drive it? Because I think it would be more interesting if it's like some guy who needs to deliver. He's riding one of those Garda trucks and he needs to survive.
It is a revenge story that shifts across timelines and between various characters' perspective. At
Yeah.
the center is
Nice.
a guy named just the letter H, played by
Yes.
Statham, a cold and mysterious character who works at a cash truck company responsible for moving hundreds of millions of dollars around Los Angeles each week.
but he betrays them.
It is a remake of a 2004 French movie called Le Convoyeur.
Les Convoyeurs de l'Argent.
Yeah, but and so I'm assuming that this is basically a thing where, like, because Guy Ritchie directed Aladdin, which did make $1 billion. I didn't
Will
see
Smith
it,
as
but it
Robin
made $1 billion.
Williams. Yeah.
But
Will Smith is playing Robin Williams. Ooh, I'm Will Smith. I'm a genie.
but because it really seems like because of the success of that, like Guy Ritchie is just kind of lining up like the stuff that he's allowed to do now, because he has that movie with Matthew McConaughey, The Gentleman, coming out early next year, which is a return to the British crime movie that he like kind of
That
made
sounds
his name on.
exactly like a kind of Matthew McConaughey vehicle.
It's like McConaughey is like the one American in an all British cast.
Oh, that's cool.
And but then he's going to do this afterwards. And the important thing is Josh is back. Yes, we will do an episode on this
course.
movie whenever this movie comes out. Even if like Matt lives in South America, we'll like
Have no fear.
we'll
I'll
travel
find a
down
theater
there.
down there, yeah.
Google
Exactly.
Hangout.
But guys, I'm excited. Like Josh, I mean, he has that TV show that's
Yeah.
on the Paramount Network lined up, and then he's going to do this. And could this be the beginning of the heartening that we talked
I
so
hope
much
so.
about?
I hope this is a sign of things to come.
As
Even
in
if it's
like
not
like
like the
movies
heart-
that we can actually watch easily, that we don't have to wait a year for them to hit VOD after
Yeah.
they've like done their like brief festival debut to a lukewarm response,
Yeah.
which is what's happening with She's Missing.
Yeah. Or bury themselves into archival oblivion because of like behind the scenes drama surrounding the Long Home and James Franco's production company.
Exactly.
That sort of stuff. You know?
I just want-
general things that happen to movies. You know what I mean?
non-specific stuff. Yeah.
All I ask is a Josh Hartnett movie that gets a wide release in like 3,000 theaters where I can use my AMC A-list account to not really pay money and reserve my ticket to just like stroll down to the theater for like a Thursday matinee and watch it.
Pat just wants to have a good time at the movies watching Josh Hartnett.
Yeah, our sexy, tall, mysterious boy, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Ooh,
plus,
also this could be
Yeah.
a return for Josh to like Slevin territory.
Yeah.
A crime movie with shifting timelines.
yeah, and you know what's going to be great about
And
this
some
movie?
stupid gimmick about not feeling fear or something.
Yeah, how many?
unable.
God, do you think there'll be a Kansas City Shuffle in this one?
God, that
I mean,
movie
if-
is so stupid.
If we're talking about early Guy Ritchie movies, there's no movie that's better suited to do that kind of shit. I mean, that's what Slevin was probably borrowing
It's
from
basically
anyways. Yeah.
it's trying to be like a Tarantino
It's a
movie
Tar-
and a Guy Ritchie movie.
yeah, they're trying to mash two It directors together. Yeah. And it really sucks.
What's great too
But
about
that's it.
this,
We had a great time talking about it.
Yes. And so the second piece of news.
the second piece of news.
Well, Jake, you're the gossip hound on this podcast. You want to talk about it?
Oh, that. Okay. Yeah.
What do you think I was talking about?
I had no idea. I was
It's
just
like-
as interested as the guests and the listeners might be.
Normally, we don't really go in for too much gossip. We don't want to invade Keanu's personal life.
No, but you know what? It's in the news. It's something that we're allowed to comment on. Keanu's got a sweet new girlfriend.
No.
It's an old friend, right? But
not
just
a new
publicly
girlfriend,
unveiled.
and someone we've talked about before.
Yeah, we read their book.
We read their book.
Shadows. Miss Alexandra Grant, everybody.
That-
Keanu
yeah.
Reeves' new beau.
But this is his
Big.
first public relationship in
Yeah.
like 20 years.
Yeah. And we're just happy for him. Keanu Reeves has always had that sort of air of mysteriousness that always had a tinge of melancholy to it. And like a tinge
a
of
man destined to be alone. But
Yeah.
To sit on benches. and
just
look
sit
at
on
the
benches,
floor.
just working on motorcycles and just being quiet.
Yeah.
The world loves him, but does he have love?
Yeah, for
Does
himself.
Keanu love himself? He has a Zen just sort of or a Buddhist like.
Yeah, that's a hint.
Like
Yeah.
I guess the big news is just like he had revealed, because everyone's so thirsty for that tabloid
Shit.
tabloid
and the more
shit.
mysterious you are, the more that like
Hungry.
desire to kind of know what's going on amplifies.
And I think also
Which is
this
an unfortunate byproduct for him, because I think it's like totally and like it's totally against what he's hoping just being quiet will provide, which is just people stop caring, and
Right.
instead it just amplifies like the mystery around him.
But this
And
is
then everybody's
also,
like,
of
"What are you
course,
doing
this
during
is the
day?"
year of the Keanu Sans, where,
Yeah.
where like the world kind of realizes how much they love Keanu.
Yeah.
And so this was kind of, obviously, I think a lot of the conversation around him this year has been people being like, oh man, he seems like a really good person. Oh man, he's making like fun movies. Oh man, he's just like interesting to listen to. He
Yeah.
has like profound thoughts. And so everyone likes him. And now this is a moment where we're all happy for him.
Yeah, one of the funny things about this silly news article that came out too.
There, I just Googled it. There are so many articles like dissecting this.
Too many to be like.
Can I read
just
some
happy that you're in a relationship?
Can I read some
Yeah.
insane
Yeah,
headlines?
that's it. That's the end of what anyone should be saying.
Okay, so here's a page 6 article. The headline is Keanu Reeves' girlfriend, Alexandra Grant. What you need to know about the visual artist. Here's one on The
Those
Cut.
types of articles. Yeah.
Keanu Reeves' lady friend has given me the courage to turn 40.
Wow. Okay. Sure.
But then,
Some
okay,
positivity.
here's
I guess.
one that is wild.
You don't need courage. It just happens.
It's from the Pacifica Tribune. How Keanu Reeves found love again after tragedy.
Okay.
His
That happened so long
His
ago.
tragedy was 20 years ago.
It's weird to assume
and he did experience some like legitimate like tragedies.
Yeah.
But also, it's not like this happened 3 years ago and he bounced back. It's like that is decades.
It's also weird to. I feel like the weird assumption with that statement is that like he just spent the past 20 years like living in a apartment that has no furnishings for like the entire time. And
Just literally
grieved.
John Wick style, just like looking at like one tape that he recorded
it's like I'm
and just
sure
crying.
the dude has a normal life and has been happy since then at certain points during the year and stuff. Like I don't know, it's such a silly thing to say. It's like,
But it's all part
a
of
man
like the myth making of being
Yeah.
a public figure, which it's kind of bland to say, but it comes with its ups and downs. It's like
my favorite thing about this whole news, like, oh, Keanu Reeves has a new girlfriend, isn't this great? Is that people like there were enough people, I guess, whose first impression looking at the photo thought it was Helen Mirren for a split second.
and Helen Mirren says she is happy to be confused for Keanu Reeves' girlfriend.
Yeah, but the line I liked even better than that, because obviously it gets to Helen Mirren. They're like, Helen Mirren, just photos everywhere. Did you hear that Keanu Reeves? They compared Alexandra Grant to you, and she's like, oh yeah, and she's like, I knew Keanu because my husband, I guess, had worked with him a little bit in The Devil's Advocate back in 1999. And what did she say? She was like, we know Keanu very well, and he's a lovely boy, and what did she say? It was so funny. It was so funny. It was like so like cute and British. You know what I mean? She was like, I'm sure that Alexandra Grant, she's a very lucky girl, and Keanu, I bet he's a very lucky boy as well. It's just like, yeah. I was like, that's so nice. What a good way to respond to that too.
Yeah, I forgot Helen Mirren was married to Taylor Hackford.
Yeah.
Who we'll talk about on our Devil's Advocate episode.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing about this news, obviously, like
Yeah.
I felt it was relevant to bring up, especially because we read their book Shadows.
Yeah.
And I from I think I read like one article about this, but it did say like sources close to them say that they've been together for a while. And
Sure, yeah.
and that, and of course with Keanu, because he doesn't like getting into like his personal life too much. He clearly made a deliberate choice to be like, I'm going to go public with this now.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Which I would have to guess shows like a commitment at some point where he's like, yeah, I guess this is serious enough where I'm not going to be like showing you somebody that then like 2 months later, all of a sudden it's like, oh, we broke up, Right. So it probably means that they have a good relationship with each other.
And it probably also is like, you make that decision to go public so that you're finally ready to deal with scrutiny in a way that like, even if you're like 3 years in, it might just put this, you're like, okay, I really want this to work. Like I can't also have everyone like just salaciously trying to like snap photos and like
Constantly,
learn.
Yeah. And write all of these probably articles that if I don't go public or whatever are just articles that'll just take free range and license to write whatever they want, totally unfounded on any fact about them, Be like, mysterious woman Keanu's with signals new tragedy ahead or something. You're like just making up shit in the news. And it's like, this isn't true.
It's like
What are you talking
Nightcrawler,
about?
they're trying to murder her.
Yeah.
But again, you look at how people just jump on any like photo of Keanu Reeves, or they're always like secretly filming him when he's like on a bus or on the subway or whatever.
It's terrible sounding, honestly.
It does, but like clearly, like I imagine this stuff that they considered, and about like, oh, like it is a bummer that he presumably had to like hide his relationship from the world and like do it in secret.
Yeah.
So anyway, all I want to say is good for Keanu.
Yeah, good for you, buddy.
And
this is great.
I'm just happy,
buddy.
I'm happy for our dude. Keanu, when you eventually come on the show as a guest, we're not gonna pry about this stuff because that's your private life, and it's not our business.
Hey, we'll respect it. That being said,
Hey, Keanu,
Alexandra Grant, come on the podcast.
Yeah, and tell us all the deets, the dirty deets, girl.
No, we're only going to talk about Shadows, the book, and nothing else for 2 hours.
But hey, also,
Look,
I'll take it. If
listen.
that's all we talk about.
Keanu, listen, it's none of my business. You know what I'm saying? It's just, hey, good. It's none of my business. Good for you.
Yeah.
Right?
Simple as that.
And it's simple as that. And it is what it is. And good, it's none of my business, but it is what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let's just leave it at that.
And we'll just leave it at that.
And on that note, as you can tell from this discussion, today we're talking about Little Buddha, a film by Bernardo Bertolucci.
Hey, look, I'm not saying anything. Hey, it's none of my business. I love that guy.
But it is what
I
it
love
is.
whatever that character
I was like, is that just De Niro?
No, I was thinking of like a sort of like
De Niro-esque.
Long Island Italian guy.
Yeah.
Well, he's good, and I hope he returns to the show. at
Long
some
Island
point.
Italian guy?
Yeah.
Oh, you bet your
Boy, do I have some things in store
You're
for
just keeping that in
man.
the chamber. Just
If you
waiting
thought
for the
that
right
was
moment.
good, just wait for other things that he'll say.
Matt, are you implying I'm going to have to edit this podcast?
No.
But the man is from Long Island.
But he
and,
is, I'm just saying, it's not going to be me saying it. It's going to be a man with a completely different context culturally. Namely, a context of ignorance.
Well, now I'm scared.
He's coming.
So, friends,
yeah.
we're
Little Buddha.
We're talking about the film Little Buddha, which
movie's,
is a movie I have been so excited to get to.
Same.
Just because I didn't know it existed, and then when we started, when we decided to do Keanu and started doing a little bit of research, it was this weird entry on his filmography. And when I just clicked on the IMDb link, and the poster came up, and I saw the image of Keanu Reeves.
Yep.
Immediately, I was like, I can't wait to see this movie. I'm horrified of what it might be, but I gotta see this.
Hey, listen,
Yeah.
if you end up not even watching this movie, at the very least, do yourself a favor and just look at what Keanu looks like in this movie. It is very funny.
It's wild and of its time.
Here's the thing. Also, there are YouTube clips. This is a hard movie to get a hold of.
Yeah.
It is not easily accessible. That's honestly why originally I had thought about like having a guest for this episode, and when it was clear how hard the movie was to track down, I was like, no, this is such a pain for us. Like, we'll just like do it ourselves and not inconvenience anyone else.
Honestly, these like last couple movies have been tough to acquire.
We still haven't watched Even Cowgirls Get the Blues,
Right, which
because that movie is so hard to track down, which for a 90s Gus Van Sant film,
right after My Own Private Idaho.
should not be that hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? I'll talk about the struggle to get a hold of that movie on that episode.
Yeah.
Because still haven't been able to track it down.
Yeah.
So in this we watched the, I guess, Australian cut of this movie.
Wait, what? This is an Australian cut of the movie?
Okay.
Pat was telling me that
Pat sent the link for us
because we
to
were
watch.
for a while we were like confused as to how long the film was, because Pat's like, it's 2 hours, and we're like, well, we saw 2 hours 15, and then there's 2 hours 20.
Right.
And I guess you were saying
Yes,
there's different
okay.
cuts.
There are 2 run times. Also, I tried to do some research. For a movie that I feel like if this came out now would have so much written about it for multiple reasons.
Oh, yeah.
Many reasons.
There, which we'll get into.
Scarlett Johansson would have a little less heat on her, I would think. She'd finally be like, Jesus, finally the news
Finally.
cycle takes it on to somebody else. All right.
Yeah, and again, we'll get
My
into
Harriet Tubman biopic.
that. Guys, by the way, so you know that movie Harriet?
Yeah.
Not Scarlett Johansson.
I wish.
So I just saw like a billboard for it on my way over here
Yeah.
to record, and every single time I see an ad for it, all I can think about is the movie Transformers: The Last Night, where they reveal that Transformers assisted Harriet Tubman on the Underground Railroad, and that Harriet Tubman was a member of the Society of Witwickens.
Wow, what a reveal that would be in this film.
Yeah, well, because the Harriet, it looks a little bit more like it doesn't. It's being sold less as like just a classic like bland prestige biopic, and a little bit edgier.
Okay.
And
They're playing like harder music, and they're like
Birth of a
Harriet
Nation
comes
when that
back
movie
with a
came
gun.
out?
Yeah.
yeah, hey, remember that the crazy narrative of the release of Birth of a Nation?
Yeah, sort of.
When
yeah.
it blew up at Sundance.
I remember that.
I got bought, I think by like Fox Searchlight maybe, for like $15 million, and then all the news
The director
about
and-
Nate Parker's
Yeah.
I forgot about this.
about stuff that he did in college came out, and it destroyed like the press for that movie
Yeah.
so much.
The movie was buried immediately.
Wait, what did Nate Parker do?
I mean,
Oh,
I feel like you can guess.
Let's just
Well-
say sexual assault allegations that
Yeah,
seemed
that kind of
that
stuff.
seemed like pretty well founded.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically that, and so suddenly that like just overshadowed everything else, and a movie that seemed like in February, like, oh my god, this thing is going to sweep the Oscars.
Yeah.
It did not sweep the Oscars.
Oh, interesting.
And
But that movie, I always got the impression had edgier tones, like the Harriet Tubman movie is
Yeah,
kind
well,
of trying to put on.
a
like a
little
modernized sort of a little bit kind of take on historical
Right.
stuff or something like that.
exactly, but
Okay. Dude, if Megatron's in the fucking movie,
Can you imagine?
count me in.
Yeah.
Because like the thing is, we need more sort of like David Mitchell style hypertext in every movie.
Yeah, exactly. I want to
Let's make it MCU, but it's movies cinematic universe.
and it's free reign,
it's
and
free-
everybody can appear in
everyone's
anybody
it.
else's movie.
And anyone can be in it.
everything is public domain.
Teeth Sonic Hedgehog.
Yeah.
He's helping Harriet Tubman run slaves that are got railroad really fast.
quickly.
Quickly.
He does it.
Meanwhile,
faster than
Darth
normal.
Vader is I guess an Epps. I don't
Yeah.
know. It doesn't all have to be in the Civil War, I guess, because
Yeah.
they're in space.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
Jason X
Here we go. Here we go. And Event Horizon.
and Dragonheart Dragon.
Right. So the thing that I was just saying, getting at
Yeah.
with the Harriet Tubman
The
movie is
Tubman?
like on the poster she's got a gun. It's that kind of thing.
Gun.
It's it's
Wow.
like she like neat. They're selling it as like a little bit more badass
Yeah.
than a lot of these movies like traditionally are.
Right.
But every time I see that poster, I just think like, man, so the Transformers were helping her out, and you know, like, because just throughout history.
Right.
Yeah.
Jake, have you seen Transformers: The Last Night?
No, Patrick, I have not seen Transformers last night.
It's the most confusing film ever made.
You've told me a little bit about it. Like it wraps in sort of the King Arthur legend at the beginning.
Oh, the
and-
first
and
20
Knights
minutes of the
Round Table.
movie
Yeah.
are all about King Arthur, and they feature Stanley Tucci as Merlin, who is an alcoholic. Important note, Stanley Tucci played a different character in the previous Transformers movie.
Right.
And there's the amazing revelation that what people in that world thought of as magic
Yeah.
was actually just Merlin being given technology by Transformers that lived in a cave. And so King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table are waging this huge war that they're losing. And then Merlin goes off in this last-ditch effort to save the day, and he does, by convincing the Transformers that live in a cave to help him out, and they show up with their big robot dragon, and then they like join the Knights of the Round Table. It's the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
But that's the beginning of this movie.
Yeah.
And then later on, Anthony Hopkins shows up and reveals that this was the beginning of the formation of the Society of Witwickens, in which Harriet Tubman was also a member. There's also a flashback scene to World War II where the Transformers help the Allies kill Nazis.
Wow. Okay.
There's only like 3 periods that anyone ever wants to like do anyway. It's
Medieval, World War II. Well, that said, we do not actually see a flashback to the 1800s and the Underground Railroad, because I feel like once you bring actual like American slavery into a Transformers movie,
It's a little too real.
it's a little too real.
I don't know,
man.
It's supposed to be silly fantasy, you know?
That movie goes that hard that like if you know, it's a pretty like much only a slam dunk morally if you're just on the side of freeing slaves, you know what I mean? So like,
That's true.
If the Transformers were doing that, you can be like, they're driving like a robot McLaren that talks out of like.
I suppose in a weird way, it's not any more or less cartoonishly cathartic than say like a Tarantino movie where you have.
Well, yes,
like,
it is, because it's based on Hasbro toys, and it's about transforming robots from the planet Cybertron. And then it also raises a lot of questions like, these robots are like omnipotent and can destroy everything. Why was there, like, if they were helping on the Underground Railroad, they could have just won the Civil War in a day.
Yeah.
Why did they not just wipe out slavery? It's just a weird thing to bring into this universe.
For sure.
It's a
I'm
thing
not
that-
arguing that.
Yeah. Anyway, this is a podcast about Keanu Reeves.
So anyways, Keanu's doing kind of what the Harriet Tubman movie was doing, I guess, is what her point was.
with a dash of ScarJo.
Yeah.
So like,
Wait, why did I bring up the
I don't know,
I
man.
don't know,
Your
Pat,
brain
but
is
that's
just
okay.
so diseased with like Transformers movies. It's all right though. You're like
Transformers movies.
like Felicity, just shit swirling around in there.
Shit swirling around in there.
It's funny you say that, because by the time this episode is out, I will have released a video where there's just an interlude in the middle of it where I explain my Star Wars Felicity theory again.
No.
Jesus Christ,
Ooh,
man.
just
Hey,
drilling
look, guys,
home the point we
we're
made.
like 30-something days away from Star Wars Episode 9, so I've really got to go on the record with my insane theory about what I think will happen in
good
that
point,
movie.
yeah.
Because
That's a great point.
if anything, like, if there is time travel in that movie,
yeah.
I'm going to look like a genius.
Yeah, so
Because
you
I
gotta
called
get
it a
it-
year and a half early.
Yeah, you got to
That's
signal
true.
that out into the ether right now.
You have a very specific prediction. You'll be the new movie's Nate Silver.
You'll be like what's that
No,
guy's name?
it's only if Felicity is connected. Like
She's in it,
she's in it.
right?
Yeah.
So that's already like a good sign.
Oh, I know.
Who's that famous investor that always talks, who always predicts the market really well?
Nostradamus.
Yeah.
Unimportant. Whatever, let's move on. You're that guy of Felicity
I'm
and Star Wars references.
him.
Fuck, why can't I think of his name?
Now I want to
Doesn't
know.
matter.
He
Anyways,
lives in a ranch.
yeah,
And he's rich.
yeah, everybody,
What the fuck is his name?
Ben Bernanke. It's not Ben Bernanke,
You know
but
what I
that's
always
the first
thought of-
name that comes to mind.
I always
don't know
thought
why.
of Ben Bermanke, and he's the
He's the
Pokemon.
Pokemon Mankey. Hell yeah.
And he's like, why did we hire this Pokemon?
Yeah. Ben Bernanke. He's coming in and clobbering through our pane glass doors with his big fists.
But look, so
Ben Berspanky.
Ooh.
And he's into BDSM.
And he's also a little rascal.
Yeah. He rides that fire hose, if you know what I mean.
so
Look
Hell
at the
yeah.
Little Rascals. It happened in the movie Spanky rides a fire hose.
Right.
Jake,
did
is
you
what I'm
find out
referring
who
to.
owns Miramax yet?
Yeah, Disney.
Great.
Bob, no, he's out.
don't say Bob Iger. What were you going to say?
No.
What is that guy's name?
Definitely not
Bob
that.
Weinstein.
Bob Weinstein, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm really trying to figure out why I brought up this
It's
tangent
okay.
about
Let's just move on. It's all
Harry Tubman.
It's all temporal.
You know what? My
you
brain's so broken.
It's all impermanent, you know? If we learned anything from the Buddhism 101 course we took watching this film, it's that sometimes it's better to just let go.
Oh,
Form,
okay.
form is nothing and nothing is form, Patrick.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so what you've done is said nothing, but it is still form. Yeah.
Look, it's all content, right, guys?
Yeah.
No. To bring this back to a thing,
content on the inside.
to a thing Matt was saying earlier about the different cuts of this movie.
Right. The Australian cut was what we watched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was mentioning that basically there's not a lot of information to find about this movie on the internet. Like
Right.
there's not a lot written about it, even though it was given a wide release, and it has a 68% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, not a horrific score.
Right, but like I was able to find some interviews that like Keanu did during production.
Okay, yeah.
But according to IMDb, there are two cuts of this movie. There was the American cut for the American release, and there's an Australian cut. The American release is 2 hours and 3 minutes long.
Yeah.
The Australian cut is 2 hours and 21 minutes long. That's the version that we watched.
Yeah.
Because that's all I could find on the internet.
But it's called the Australian cut, so it's not even the director's cut, as in like
No,
Bertolucci
it
didn't
just
like...
says that was released in Australia, but presumably this was given some kind of like Blu-ray release at some point.
Right.
It's out of print now.
Yeah.
But maybe
Probably for the best.
But maybe that is the director's cut, and maybe like the Blu-ray was like mostly his cut.
What did they take out? I wonder.
Honestly, this movie could have been cut.
No, that's the thing. I'd rather watch the American cut because
Yeah.
one of my complaints about this movie is it's too long.
It's too
Yeah,
long.
it loses so much steam by like an hour and a half in.
I remember like
I never had Steam.
That's right. It was
This
running on a
movie's
weak
boring.
trickle of steam.
Yeah, but there's at least a story that seems to be going somewhere, and then the last half hour, I remember like, Matt, when I was leaving the apartment earlier, and you were still watching the movie, you're like, it keeps going.
It just keeps going. There's just more story, I guess.
No, the story really just kind of just grinds to a halt in the last half hour, but
Yeah.
we'll get to that. For now, I just want to read the opening paragraph of the Wikipedia plot summary. Because I'm
Let's do
assuming
it.
the majority of our listeners have not seen Little Buddha. I will say, a thing that I find very interesting is 3 friends of ours we discovered recently
Yeah, this is true.
until this year, the only Keanu Reeves movie they had ever seen was Little Buddha.
Yeah,
know
it's
the
an
wrong people.
anomaly.
Jake's friend
what we've
Chris
experienced.
and our
know.
friends Chloe and Lily Holgate.
Yeah, shout out to my friend Chris. Hi guys. Shout out to the Holgate
Holgates,
sisters.
who listeners
Hello.
probably know from videos.
Yeah.
Has Lily ever been in a video? I don't know.
Yeah.
Chloe's been in a lot.
Yeah, she
But
got
they'll be
punched.
on the podcast eventually.
Yeah.
The other thing, I wanted to have the Holgates on that episode because the only Keanu movie they've ever seen is Little Buddha.
This is a bizarre movie to have seen at all.
Right. Oh,
Let alone being the only Keanu Reeves movie you've seen.
but now,
God damn it.
Now watching the movie, I have a theory behind why that happened.
real.
All
to some
right,
people.
let's go. Let's see
But,
what that theory is.
But no, and maybe some of our listeners are anomalies like these friends of ours, but I'm assuming most people have not seen it.
Right.
And also, even if they wanted to watch it as preparation for this episode, had a tough time.
You can't.
So,
You can.
here's okay. Tibetan Buddhist monks from a monastery in Bhutan, led by Lama Norbu, are searching for a child who is the rebirth of a great Buddhist leader, Lama Dorje. Dorje?
Lama Dorje.
Dorje. Lama Norbu and his fellow monks believe they have found a candidate for the child in whom Lama Dorje is reborn, an American boy named Jesse Konrad.
JK.
The young son of an architect and a teacher who live in Seattle. The monks come to Seattle in order to meet the boy. That is the beginning of the movie. Ooh. Sirens in the distance.
Yep.
Crime is afoot.
Death, death, death. Murder, murder, murder.
I'm also just looking up now Little Buddha on Amazon.
Right.
Just to see, can you... Oh, by the way, if anyone is interested, you can buy a DVD of Little Buddha on Amazon.com for $79.99.
It's so not worth it.
Worth
Please,
every-
Who is selling the DVD of this film for $80 basically? That's so
yeah,
rude.
fuck you.
and
fuck that
and
guy.
a Region 2 Blu-ray
So you can't even play it here.
from Germany is
does
available
Germany have-
for $16.14.
Reasonable.
Oh, okay, that is reasonable.
Still too much.
Yeah, it's too much
But
for the
also
1990
Germany?
Yeah.
So it makes me
Deutschland.
wonder now if, I'm assuming that Blu-ray.
What if it's Deutschland and it's boys only?
Oh, that sounds fun. It's like Little Rascals Boys Club.
This film is one of those movies that is seemingly very intentionally buried and forgotten. I'm sure even Keanu Reeves, if we were to talk to him, would probably feel something akin to discomfort at the reminder of his role.
For sure, because, he seems like a thoughtful guy. I'm sure he's aware of that whole conversation of representation and stuff like that.
Right. So to clear the air, he's doing brownface, basically.
Okay,
yeah. Like we've been tiptoeing. Like
let's lay it out there. He's playing an Indian
He
man.
plays Siddhartha, and he is browned up.
Yeah.
This is truly the most baffling thing about this movie. Okay, so obviously there's a lot more conversation now than I think there was in the early 90s about
yes.
Keanu. No, about Keanu's Asian lineage.
Oh yeah.
I don't think a lot of people knew in like 93 that he is of like, Hawaiian and Chinese descent.
Right.
I think he was like commonly viewed as just a white actor.
A white guy, yeah.
And he appears in this movie only in these sections in which people are reading like a storybook, like a children's storybook about like the life of Siddhartha and the Buddha. Mm-hmm. And Keanu plays Prince Siddhartha, and it is a wild choice to have these sections be entirely Indian actors, and then Keanu at the center of this. And and even despite being of like mixed Asian descent, he's not of Indian descent.
No,
He's not the right Asian.
yeah. It comes across still as like a little odd.
It is. It's interesting that he is that this is one of several instances in his career in which he plays some kind of like chosen one or like messianic like religious figure. Dude. Like Bill and Ted is basically that. He's the savior of humanity.
Right.
Obviously there's The Matrix. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting that people...
These are very different films.
They're very different films. But it is interesting that people like sort of look to Keanu like his Zen qualities as an actor are something pointed to a lot.
Yeah.
And
is that coded for Asian? Is that like
Zen philosophy is certainly from Eastern philosophy, so maybe a little bit, right?
Yeah, but again, he is a guy who often seems very still and at peace.
Yeah,
and who also has like an interesting, very poised physical presence.
Yeah,
and so there are aspects.
Did he get extra thin for this?
Yes, he did, and I'll get into that.
And I'm sure Bertolucci was. I mean, obviously, we're saying Keanu Reeves as accepted in like the American film market. People were just like, "Oh, he's a white guy," but I'm sure Bertolucci was at least aware enough to think that some of Keanu's Asian heritage would be able to help with this part on some level, right?
I don't even know if Bertolucci knew about that.
Bertolucci's drunk all the time on set.
But no, okay. Here's what I'm going to say.
Italian.
Keanu is obviously miscast, and it is distracting that you have him who is not Indian playing this very important figure,
the most important figure, some might say.
Important figure
in Buddhist philosophy.
Exactly. It is a poor choice and a mistake. I think Keanu's performance, like despite the fact that he shouldn't be in this movie,
is better than Dracula. Yeah,
is much better than Dracula.
Yeah,
and I think he's actually like a lot of the things he's doing actually work.
Right.
Again, that is as like sort of like a side note to the fact that he shouldn't be in the movie.
It's he's in a broken situation.
Yeah,
but he is. I will agree with you. I was really just waiting for him to appear. I knew what was going on. We all saw the photos of him before we watched the movie.
Yeah, we knew it was going to be something like this.
The other thing though is like he looks. I imagine there must have just been some casting choice about they wanted somebody. I think the notion of like an otherworldly beauty was being attempted here with like the prince.
Yeah.
And like,
and Keanu being the handsome man that he is, was a person that could fit into that template for them, I suppose.
But like going back to what Pat was saying, I guess is like his, some of his choices aren't actually like terrible. He's like definitely committed to a very specific manner of speaking.
Yeah.
But his like physical presence and like There is the part though where like the Zen bliss face makes him look like a dummy.
Yeah,
he looks like a dumb simpleton.
He looks smug, is what he looks like. He'll do this grin that's supposed to be the wise, all-knowing grin of pure enlightenment, and it
Right.
just looks like a shit-eating smirk, where it's
really
like, I know
does.
something you don't
Yeah.
know, and it's enlightenment.
Yeah, I've lifted the veil of Maya, and now I see.
I've achieved release from samsara. Sorry.
Samsara, not Sara.
Samsara, not Sara should be like a Buddhist expression. That's great.
There is that, but a lot of the parts
Yeah.
with him are mostly him observing.
Yeah,
And you know,
exactly.
like him learning about death.
Yeah.
And like
And
the concept
agony.
of suffering and
And
stuff like that.
aging.
And because, you know, Keanu does have that sort of like that sort of blankness to him
Yeah.
in some ways. And I think, you know, he's effective, especially when he's just sort of like standing calmly and observing things. And he does have like, and physically, you know, he's always been a good physical performer, and he does have this poise and these very precise movements
Yeah.
that I think is effective. Again, he shouldn't be in the movie,
Right.
But it's like.
It is a podcast about him, though, so we do kind of have to take the stance of defending him. I think a lot of the time,
It is, but
or, just,
like
or at
he was-
least just giving him some context.
It's that weird
outside
thing
of
because
the-
it's also 1993.
Yeah.
It was, you know, people like there were not a whole lot of like campaigns against whitewashing in films.
I would say that there were no campaigns. if I
Right,
had to-
it was a less woke time.
Yeah.
No audible ones, you know.
Well,
Exactly,
there's no
yeah.
internet also, but that kind of like these kinds of things like we hear a lot about them now. Like for instance, there's you know that T-shirt that says it's like Emma and Scarlett and Tilda and Matt.
I didn't know that was a T-shirt,
Not
but
me,
I obviously know what
and
you're referring
the last
to.
one's not me. No, it's not me.
But
Okay.
you know, it like the list of like actors who have played Asian characters.
So let's go through them real quick, though. Emma from Aloha.
From
right?
Aloha.
Scarlett Johansson from Ghost in the Shell.
Yep.
Matt
Damon,
from...
the one with the monsters
okay,
fighting the Great Wall.
I'm going to bring that up in a sec because
Wall.
that's actually a mistake on the shirt's part.
What was the other one?
Tilda Swinton from Doctor Strange.
yeah.
To varying degrees... I mean, like, yeah, I see what
Matt
you mean.
Damon
Right.
plays a white guy who it's like the Last Sam, or it's like the Tom
No,
Cruise movie kind of.
So here's the thing about the Great Wall.
I mean, they're fighting lizards. Come
right.
on.
Let's not take this too seriously,
Well,
guys.
the thing with when the Great Wall came, when
Yeah.
the trailer for that movie came out,
Right.
and everyone shit on it because it was like, oh great, it's a movie called The Great Wall about China, and it's another white savior narrative where Matt Damon shows up to save the Chinese people.
Yeah.
And then the movie actually came out, and it turns out what the movie is actually about is it's almost like a Chinese propaganda film because it's a Chinese production. Zhang Yimou directed it.
Right.
And the thing is, Matt Damon shows up to help these people, and then mostly is just converted to like their awesome way of life, and the Chinese people kind of do everything, and Matt Damon is just there to be like the Western outsider who learns how cool and great China actually is.
Yeah.
And so I
Just Matt Damon, just like, damn, sick. Get the fuck out of here.
Whoa, shit,
I
that's
mean,
awesome. Sweet blades.
Not to mount a huge defense for
Yeah.
the Great Wall, which I also haven't even seen.
never seen it.
But from
Willem Dafoe's also in that.
He is.
Which is great because he's like a perfect... He's the missing link between Matt Damon and the lizard people, I think.
He is.
I mean, he's the Green Goblin.
if you did an Animorphs with him, it would
He
be,
would be
like,
the
he would be the
second.
middle stage. Yeah.
Between a human and a lizard, I think Willem Dafoe would fit nicely on a
Oh, yeah.
K.A. Applegate book cover.
Applegate.
But I do feel a little bit bad because that was
Apple.
actually not a case of whitewashing, and he
right.
kind of gets lumped in with the rest.
Matt Damon.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like nobody wants to see that movie because the trailer looked bad. So everybody's judgments were just based on the trailer.
Right.
It's like, I
But
didn't go
the thing
sit
is, like,
down in the
what
theater
I'm
and
saying is,
consider it seriously.
You never see Keanu even brought up in this discussion. And obviously,
nobody knows about this
This
movie.
movie is from
And
like
no one knows about it.
is from much earlier.
Right.
But I feel like this is, and again, we are not the people most qualified to talk about this.
You get it.
What are you
Like,
gonna do though? This is
yeah,
our show. Baby.
It's our
Right.
show. He was in it. We're
like
us.
Keanu
covering
like
it.
is actually partly of Chinese descent.
Yeah.
But like that doesn't mean he can play like an Indian character.
No.
Yeah. So
It does not.
So
But
anyways, he's the
just,
Buddha.
like if this happened now,
Yeah.
people would lose their goddamn minds.
Yeah, Keanu also wouldn't do it now. I don't
He wouldn't.
think.
Yeah.
Well, it was
Yeah.
interesting. I found this interview on YouTube
Yeah.
where he seems to be during production of Little Buddha, and he's asked about like reactions to his casting, and of course by then the movie hadn't really come out, and there was not the kind of like internet, social media news cycle with movie news. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of people didn't even know. A lot of people, I imagine, did not know Keanu was in Little Buddha until like a trailer came out for it.
Right.
Hey, listen, you know what I have to say? Ignorance is bliss.
Ooh, true. Thank you, Cypher. But
Thanks,
I'm not Cypher, no.
by the way, okay, here's a pop
I'm
quiz.
Tank, I think, based on my body.
No holes.
No.
holes.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you guys remember Cypher's real name?
No.
We haven't, obviously, we've not recorded
Joey
our Matrix episode.
Pantaleone.
Yes, or yet. But they actually, in one scene, they actually say his name. That's not Cypher. His real world name, or
is
sorry,
it?
his Matrix name.
Yeah. The Matrix.
Cypher's
name.
my slave name.
Does anyone remember what it is?
No.
Actually, you never learn his first name.
Just his last name.
Yes.
What is it?
Mr. Reagan. His last name is Reagan.
Ronald Reagan. Must be.
Must
be a reference.
It's a line,
economics.
there's one
Trickle-down.
line where Agent Smith just says,
Deregulation.
Mr. Reagan. In the way that he
Oh,
says,
yeah.
Mr. Anderson and all those things. Anyway,
Wonder if the Wachowskis had any larger symbolism that was attached to them calling him Reagan.
probably not.
Probably.
not.
Or I don't
Honestly,
know.
maybe.
They might have been high. Who knows?
And, those Wachowskis, those
Yeah.
wacky Wachowskis. I can't wait to talk about those movies.
What'll
Yeah.
they do next? You know?
Well,
Make
we know,
another
they got-
Matrix movie.
Yeah, make a new Matrix movie
guess
and
we
do a
know.
show on Amazon or something.
Showtime.
Showtime.
Sense8?
Yeah. No,
No, that-
Sense8's done.
That was them together. Now they've
They're working on their own
split
stuff,
apart. They're
yeah.
each working on a different thing. Lily's working on a Showtime series that's a comedy apparently, and Lana is directing Matrix 4.
I hope
Did you
they're-
guys get the Matrix reference out of this movie?
Oh, yes.
Did you notice this?
Yes.
There's an architect
They're
scene in
architect.
this movie.
He says,
He's
you don't fool, nice to finally meet you, architect, but your, edifice doesn't fool me.
And he's like, this cycle of rebirth will continue.
Yeah.
It's the fucking architect scene in the Matrix, and I saw it.
That didn't occur
It's
to
when
me.
he's
It should have
talking-
occurred to you.
I can't believe you missed it.
It was uncanny. It was literally the dialogue paraphrased.
And he's
the
talking to
Wachowskis
himself,
paraphrased it. Yeah.
you know?
From the arc and put it in the architect scene in the Matrix Reloaded.
For the albino twins.
Yeah.
Dude, those,
Let's see if this is on the Little Buddha quotes, because the scene is uncanny in the way that it echoes this scene across time,
oh my God.
across the river of time.
Would you also say that this movie is also in its own way, like The Great Wall, although made by Bertolucci and a sort of a bit of a propagandistic, in the not super pejorative sense of the word, attempt to make people familiar with Buddhism? Was Bertolucci himself a Buddhist at any point, or
we can't watch this. Pat, you can't just abruptly show us screenshots of the movie
I'm trying to
and
ask
derail the
pithy questions
conversation.
about the movie. Do you
Sorry,
know?
I just wanted to test
We have
the power of this one screenshot, which it'll be on all our social media.
Dude, it's so funny.
It's a split diopter shot between Keanu giving a dumb smile in extreme close-up while over his shoulder a bunch of modern day kids, one with a backwards baseball cap, are just sitting on a tree and staring at him.
It looks Keanu looks like he has brain damage. He looks so
It looks
fucked
like
up.
Jack Nicholson at the end of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
or
or
anger management. He just looks like
yeah.
Oh, sorry, Matt, finish what you were saying.
We'll put the grin online so folks can see.
yeah.
It's funny.
You'll
It's
be
funny.
able to see the image.
It's pretty funny.
You'll be laughing. At the time was Bertolucci practicing Buddhism? This seems a little bit like it's really trying to
Yeah.
it's it's literally just popularizing for anyone who live where Buddhism is practiced more.
Yeah.
It's such a common story. It's like knowing the Jesus story, obviously. So it's yeah, I don't know. Was he trying to get Western audiences to be more familiar in this very ham-fisted, epic kind of intercutting between present day and it's
It's the only reason I can think of for the movie's existence. Like
this little
that's all
kid-
the movie's doing is giving you
This
the Buddha tale.
Yeah, and this little kid, like, I don't like this movie.
No, it's not a good movie. Can I tell you what this movie
It's a
felt like to
weird
me?
movie. Yeah, Jake, lay it on us.
You know how like so this little boy, just to give like a little preface to my point, the little boy they think is this reincarnated teacher of theirs. So they go over to Seattle, and the Buddhists have a facility in Seattle called the Dharma Club.
Dharma
Or
Center.
The Dharma Center.
Dharma and Greg.
The Dharma Initiative.
Yeah, the
Dharma-
Dharma.
okay,
Initiative. We all did our bit.
Sorry.
American Dharma, the Steve Bannon movie. I don't know.
The Dharma
We're just
Bums
saying
book.
things. So they take to get the Dharma Center, and I was like,
By the
this-
way, I found it. Bertolucci is not a Buddhist.
Okay,
interesting.
more confusing now.
That makes it more confusing, yeah. But so the Dharma Center is this little learning facility, it seems like they have for people that are interested in learning more about Buddhism. And they provide books and texts. And it reminded me of like the Buddhist version of going to CCD, like the Catholic school program that you would go to.
They have little pamphlets that give you like cute, shortened versions of all the parables and things like that.
This movie, it dawned on me, it reminded me of the exact type of movie you would watch as a CCD student.
Yeah.
Just learning about the basic stories of the Bible.
I
and
never
tenets.
did CCD.
So me
I
and
don't know
Matt
anything
both
about
went to
this.
CCD.
Yeah, we're
And,
going to heaven too.
Yeah,
So that's
and
good.
we're guaranteed access
Yeah.
through the pearly gates, and it's going to be good.
VIP, baby.
And this movie reminded me, like, if for some reason a internationally renowned director like Bertolucci got a way bigger budget than it deserved and made like a Sunday morning CCD school videotape that you would
Right.
watch for Buddhism.
Because he was,
Yeah.
but because he was like a new high-profile convert, the way like
Yeah.
also Scientology kind of sometimes does, where it's like,
The interesting thing about Bertolucci, who I'm not that familiar with, is that he did a movie remarkably similar in a lot of like outward ways to this, which is The Last Emperor.
Where he won a Best Picture Academy Award.
Where he won the Best Picture. And that movie is, I haven't seen it in a long time, but I remember it being genuinely really good, whereas this movie's not. And
Yeah.
the concept is similar in that you have like a little boy
right.
who finds out that they are essentially deified by like an entire
Culture,
nation and
yeah.
culture, and have to like learn to grapple with it. But where The Last Emperor is sort of where a boy learns to grapple it, and then obviously where it gets its title, he ends up being the last within that earlier system of governance where he gets then thrown out of power. So it's about learning to feel as if you are a god, and then to be completely torn from that.
It's a
And
beautiful
then
movie.
It's
It's
a
awesome.
great movie,
Yeah.
and he has to come to terms with it. Whereas this movie is just like this like cute little like bowl cut white kid.
It's like, wow, gee
Yeah,
whiz.
he just finds out he's like a
Reincarnation.
resurrected tutor in this Tibetan school, and then just learns how cool Buddha is, and then the movie ends.
Okay, can I
And the guy dies.
Yeah, the guy dies.
can I get into my
Yeah.
take on this movie?
Sure. Yeah. What is it?
So this movie begins with the Buddhist monks.
Yeah.
And where they are there in Bhutan, and then one of them is like, "Yo, I think we might have finally found our reincarnated teacher."
dude.
I found a reincarnated Buddha.
Bro, we gotta get our asses over to Seattle
Now.
because we found the what is it, Lama Dorje.
Lama Dorje.
The Long Island guy's back. Yo,
Cue Rusted Root. Send me on my way.
I sound a little bit like Michael Rappaport.
Oh my god! Honestly, should have put that song there.
Yeah.
like less Ryuichi Sakamoto score, more Rusted Root.
Did
Hey,
Sakamoto
less
do this one?
Ryuichi,
Yes.
more
Okay.
rusted. You know what I'm saying?
More like,
so stupid.
wait, what if they collaborated in Rusted Ryuichi?
Rusted Ichi Sakaruto.
That's their collaborative album.
Fuck, I don't know why that got me so
so
good.
silly.
No, I could not think of two more opposite
Disparate.
sensibilities. Fuck.
So that's
go to Seattle.
The movie begins
Yeah.
with the monks.
Yeah.
And then they head over to Seattle, and it follows their perspective.
Yeah.
And it gets a little bit funny there because it's like there's a little bit of fish out of water stuff where they're
Right.
like in a car going to Seattle, and they're like, looking at the skyscrapers out the window and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And as like, some of them are dressed in still their monk robes, and but one guy just has like a parka on, and
Yep.
because again, some of these monks, they've just been there at the Dharma Center, like working there, and then of course they meet the family, and really, this movie, it has like four perspectives. It has the monks, it has Jesse the Kid.
Yep.
It has his parents,
Yep.
played by Bridget Fonda and Chris Isaac.
Yeah, I
And I
know.
will say, every single time Chris Isaac showed up in this movie, I got "Baby Did a Bad Thing" stuck in my head.
Yeah.
And then wished I was watching Eyes Wide Shut instead.
Wicked Game, I think, was what me and Matt had.
And
in our-
I shouldn't be in this with you. He sucked, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, Chris Isaac was
Chris
the
Isaac,
worst.
fucking never again.
No, I think it's that character is just a nothing.
Yeah, and then he also brought his shitty non-ability to act.
No,
Yeah.
he's like, put him in like a David Lynch thing. Don't put him in this movie. But then the fourth perspective is because the monks give Jesse this book about the life of the Buddha. Is it the Buddha or Buddha?
The Buddha.
Okay.
Buddha.
Buddha
Buddha Gautama.
Gautama. Apologies to our listeners if I
this is
screw up
just-
pronunciations or terminology because
No,
I'm trying to get things as correct as I
I think
can.
Yeah.
Siddhartha Gautama is the prince, and then
He transforms once
the
he's
Buddha. A
enlightened.
Buddha is like a celestial or like figure. You know what I mean?
That's true. There's
or
more
like
than one
a
Buddha. You can be.
You can there's and
There's
then there's
Buddhas.
also the Bodhisattva, which is someone who's achieved becoming the Buddha, but
because
then
he surfs so well.
yeah, but
Exactly.
but then denies living in nirvana to come back to Earth and like enlighten people, which I think is
Yeah.
what he kind of became both or something at some point.
Somehow, yeah.
Has there been like a book or an essay written on just like the recurring Buddhist elements of Keanu's filmography? Because
no, but there should be.
I
I
mean-
mean, he seems like a guy who personally has taken that philosophy a little to heart. I don't know
I
how
mean, he
much.
also lives in L.A. You know,
Yeah, it's
a
kind
lot
of
more,
inevitable.
yeah.
But just like, things like, I mean, like Point Break is like a pretty small one,
Yeah.
but you've got Bodhi there. The philosophy of Bill and Ted is be excellent to each other.
Yeah.
You obviously you've got Little Buddha.
Yeah.
You've got the Matrix with the, ideas of like,
cyclical recurrence of life. And,
Aren't most
And
religious,
unreality.
religious doctrines like nominal or like superficially always be excellent to one another?
Yeah, I mean, the
They-
golden rule is
they
be
just
excellent
kinda-
to one another from the Christian
although,
Bible.
Look, I'm not saying I'm the one to like write this essay. I'm just saying
Yeah.
someone should if they haven't already. But the last thing I wanted to get at was, so the fourth perspective in this movie is when Jesse reads this book, or like his parents read this book to him about the life of the Buddha, and then we have these extended flashback scenes shot on 70 millimeter, featuring Keanu as Prince Siddhartha, and the movie it kind of is split between all of these, and I think for me the core problem is it on paper. I feel like I always say this. On paper, this could work.
Yeah.
But I think the better version of this movie would have stuck with one perspective more consistently. Personally, I think it should have been the kid.
Yeah.
I
guess I agree with that.
because
I don't know how
It's
I feel.
hard to say.
because it the way it begins with the monks, it seems like it's aiming to be this like drama exploring like modern day Buddhism and
Yeah.
like the Tibetan monks that practice it. But then but what this movie really is like half of, which I find so interesting about it is a 90s Hollywood family film.
That's what's wild. That is the most
because
wild aspect of it.
I was
yeah.
thinking of all these movies that like the 90s specifically were this odd era where there was this boom of like PG family movies that were like they would star a kid usually, but they would be the kind of thing where it wasn't like a wacky kids comedy. There would be I'm thinking of like Searching for Bobby Fischer or
Right.
The Amazing Panda Adventure.
I forgot about these movies.
Yeah, I've been doing a little bit of research.
Yeah.
And honestly, maybe the best of them, and that has similarities to this movie, is Alfonso Cuarón's A Little Princess.
Right.
Which involved is like set in the U.S., but involves aspects of Indian culture.
Right, because those are the books that the little girls are reading from
Right,
at the
and so it has
orphanage,
these,
right?
kind of like this movie. It has these sequences set in like an ancient, like kind of fantastical India.
Right, and just that alone, I suppose, it could make a director interested in the story because at least you get to play with like contrasting images, which could make for like an interesting blend that you don't normally get to see.
I mean, the movie visually is pretty striking.
I'm going to go on a long thing about Vittorio Storaro.
We can talk about Storaro specifically soon, but like at least when it comes to, it's basically a hot and cold movie. Like you go into the story, the Reading Rainbow style immersion into the story of
the Buddha,
like learning about pain and suffering, and it's all like very like saturated
reds,
and
oranges,
oranges
warm
and things
colors.
like that.
It's
And
not
then,
just that, because even in the modern day sequences, it's like everything.
it looks like night for day constantly.
Yeah, okay. Everything Eastern, every scene, set in Bhutan.
Yeah.
As well as the flashback story scenes about Prince Siddhartha, they're all like really warm, rich, like golden colors.
Yeah.
Every scene in Seattle is, I mean, it's like it's basically like traffic. It's like it's just a blue filter put over the lens.
It reminds me of almost like Crash, like
The Cronenberg one?
Yeah.
It's so cold. It's like monochromatic, all blue. And there are, and
Felt
honestly,
like anti-tourism for Seattle. I was like, wow, I guess everybody here has chronic depression.
it did. It's like, I mean, to me,
and loses their jobs.
this, like, again, Vittorio Storaro is one of the greatest cinematographers to ever live. He's a genius.
Don't boost his ego any more than it's already been boosted.
His ego is enormous.
He's probably listening to this now.
No, trust
one
me.
more for Victoria.
In a bit, whatever. I'm gonna talk about his series of books about cinematography.
Yeah.
because I think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
But and Bertolucci is a great visual stylist. To me,
Great
this
director.
felt like the most like obvious, like least subtle visual thing to do. Of like, wow, everyone who everything involving the Buddhists and their way of life is really wonderful and sunny and nice.
Yeah.
And man, these Westerners, they're just living in like a chilly hell.
Of materialism and
cold
wealth.
and
technology.
Every so often there would be like a nice little a slightly more subtle way of doing this, where you'll like, there's this one scene where Jesse, he's in Seattle and he's talking with one of the monks who's telling him the story, and there's a window right next to them where this like golden warm light is coming in and hitting them.
Mm-hmm.
But then when Chris Isaac, his dad, enters, he's still in the like cold
Fucking
blue
Chris
shadow.
Isaac, yeah.
And so you have these two visual elements of the movie like together in the same shot.
Right.
And when like the rare times that it would do that, I was like, that's kind of clever. But in general, it was so extreme and so obvious.
Yeah.
Where I was like, okay, Bernardo, I get it.
Right.
Bernardo, my bro.
Cool. Like, yes, their way of life is better, and the world is sunnier.
Well, that's why it's so confusing that you just said that Bernardo was not, at least in some level, interested in Buddhism. Because this is what
I
it
think he's
felt like. It
interested,
felt
but-
like a guy that got obsessed with it and was like, I'm going to be the director to create this film that'll bridge the gap between like these Disney-fied Western audiences and like show them the way of Eastern thought and philosophy.
Because I did the Dreamers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you did the Dreamers
I will
after.
do the Dreamers.
Yeah, I'll do the
Oh, I
Dreamers
will
in
do
a
the
decade.
Dreamers.
That's a 2003 movie,
Yeah.
I think.
Oh,
but,
whoopsies.
But the thing about like the aspects of this
It's
is
all impermanent.
of like a 90s family movie, because again, a lot of these family films, they would be about a kid like the Amazing Panda Adventure. It's like an American kid goes like to China, this new place, and has an adventure
Jeepers.
with pandas.
Yeah.
But like that kind
Holy
of thing,
moly.
they're usually about like an average American kid with like their bowl cut and their jean jacket.
True.
Like their little Jonathan Taylor Thomas, like straight out of Man of the House.
And their brand new adult teeth that are too big for their heads.
Exactly. And then they'll but it's usually like they'll go to some other country.
Yeah.
And encounter like this amazing other culture, or they encounter an amazing animal like Free Willy, or like the Amazing Panda Adventure, both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're usually
And
those.
pandas do look kind of like killer whales.
Yeah.
So it's a good
So
connection.
it is kind of a good
same color
connective
scheme,
thread.
but this is like
Much nicer.
on paper. This is the same kind of thing. A regular American kid, suddenly has these monks show up and are like, "Hey, we think you're our reincarnated teacher," and then this kid and his family then go to Bhutan.
Well,
and
let's be fair. The kid and his dad. I want to talk about the parents.
It should. Okay, the mom is so much more interesting than the dad.
Yeah,
and still not like super interesting, but more interesting.
Neither of
than
them are
the-
interesting.
No, let's. I want to just say across the board, the acting is terrible 100% of the movie. There's no good actors in this film. I don't think anybody is even remarkable.
I think Keanu, because
Keanu's
of how
okay.
wild he's being,
the
think-
best acting is fine. You know what I mean?
I mean,
Yeah.
I think.
But that aside, the family is the most egregious
Oh, it is.
acting in the whole film.
Well,
the
thing is,
Seattle
like,
family.
I really like Bridget Fonda as an actor. She's like
She sucks in this movie.
I think it's great. In other stuff.
I'm sure.
Like,
sure.
to me, I didn't think she sucked. It's just that like she has nothing there to do because these characters are awfully written.
Oh well, sure, and that is
Because
a good point. Actors can
everything
be given a shit
everything
script,
that
right?
she in particular
Yeah.
does. It makes zero sense.
That's
a
the
monk
thing.
shows up and is like, "Why? We think your son is our reincarnated teacher," and she's like,
Yeah.
"Cool, come on into my house. like here, husband, meet these monks
Yeah.
who we're just letting hang out with our kid all the time."
Immediately on no pretext,
and which
except-
the husband, who's slightly more skeptical earlier in the film, then also just lets the boy hang out with them unsupervised. Is what was starting to drive me crazy, was the lack of parental oversight and like the way that they were like so lackadaisical about letting this child run off without them really having any clear idea of where he was going. And it gets worse as the movie goes on. Like
Well,
when the
that's what I'm
dad
saying.
travels to Bhutan with Jesse, he's like, we're in this bustling marketplace. And he's like, I'm just gonna like take a hike and walk up this temple. And he's like, Jesse, you good? And Jesse's like,
he takes
yeah.
the fucking monks are like, he is safe here. Don't worry. Like there's
Yeah,
no.
oh,
It's
I'll
like,
take your
you,
word for
you
it, dude.
just
Yeah.
met these motherfuckers. That's your child.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really strange, and again, this is why
It's terrible parenting.
It's like
They're just passive, sort of like,
Yeah.
like things are just happening to them, and they're like, oh, and they're like caught up in their own like off-screen misery.
Oh,
where
okay, this is a thing that I want to talk about because
Yeah.
there is this insane aspect of the movie where I actually
Yeah.
I had to like go back and rewatch scene because I was like, did I miss something?
Yeah.
Where so Chris Isaac, the dad, is an architect.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a lot to do.
It's one of those jobs you just write in a script until you think of something better, and he just never did. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like architect is such a common.
It
I don't
allows
know.
for a certain like wealth to be had without it seeming strange, but I
that
don't
you're
know.
not working that
In
much.
Hollywood
Yeah.
movies, if people work in cities, they are almost always either an architect or a graphic designer.
Yeah.
And this is my whole theory about this is because the screenwriters, they need someone to like work in an office and have like a regular structured job.
Right.
But they can't fathom any kind of job that is not like in a somewhat like creative field where
Yeah.
you're like designing stuff or making stuff because like, you know, they work in film. And so it's like, well, I guess an architect or a graphic designer is like the is like, I can kind of understand that, but like, yeah, or marketing.
Yeah,
it's
or
always the same
marketing,
kind of thing
yeah,
because then they can like make commercials and like
Yeah.
like ad campaigns and
But
stuff
it
like
can
that.
still be a little bit about
Those are
like,
the only
capitalism.
jobs anyone has.
Yeah.
But so there's a thing where like apparently like his project is like slowing down. He's like worried about money.
Right.
And there's this part where he's in the car with his son and he gets a call on his cool 90s car phone.
Hell yeah.
And
Is he
apparently
holding that right? By the way, the numbers were out.
I think that's
weird.
That's the way it is so that yeah, he is
Minor
holding it right.
quibble.
Sure.
No,
yeah, that's
he's
a weird
holding it
thing to
correctly.
see.
It's just like it's just a weird old 90s car phone.
Yeah.
But like his friend like
Evan.
like committed suicide?
Yeah,
Yeah,
kill
so
himself.
there's a scene earlier in the film where he talks about how there's some sort of business deal or shared investment that the two of them have. I forget the exact
And
details.
Evan lied about
and
his
Evan
finances.
is lying about the finances, or he's in some sort of hot water that's then going to also severely impact the finances of that family. So basically, the family is based on this strange relationship he has with this business partner friend
who you never
named
see,
Evan,
and
you
then
don't
who
see.
just sort of like it's just alluded to killed himself.
Yeah, basically that whatever this deal is that and or business venture that the two have in common is what's ultimately going to cause the family to lose their vast but glacial wealth that they have living on top of this hill in Seattle.
And
they're never
he
gonna.
seems to have this like he like pulls the car over to the side of the road. He gets out. He just kind of like walks along a bridge, and then apparently
Well, they leave his kid in the car on a freeway. I
does
can't
it,
even
but-
talk about the parents in this fucking movie.
But he apparently has some kind of like crisis off screen,
Right.
And then it's decided that you know what, they will let Jesse go to Bhutan, and he will accompany him.
I'm the man.
Because,
I'm the big man. I go to
because of
Bhutan.
stuff that happens like off screen.
Yeah.
Like these characters are nothings, and this is why I think the better version of this movie is the more conventional, like 90s family film.
I'm being taken onto your side now.
Where
I
it's
see.
like it's about this
Yeah.
family, and you see more of the family at the beginning, and also like let's not have like stuff. Let's not even bring in the dad's like finances. Also, this movie is rated PG,
Yeah.
and I think the reason some of our friends only saw this Keanu movie was because in the 90s, this probably was like put in the family section of the video store alongside A Little Princess and The Amazing Panda Adventure, and they ended up renting it.
Yeah.
Little
Little Buddha, it sounds cute.
Yeah, and it's a PG movie about a little kid with a bowl cut going to a foreign country. that is what it's about.
Yeah.
And so, but because they spend so much time with the monks at the beginning, it takes a while for us to meet the kid and the family. And then stuff that and then because they have to get to certain points, the parents make these insane decisions. Or they have like these like epiphanies or make decisions that happen like off screen. Like, you know what? I am going to like go to this East Asian country with my son and let him go to this monastery and meet all these monks and find out it. Like they should have gotten to Bhutan like I would say by like 50 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
And a lot more of it should have been about like meeting the other, to reference The Matrix, potentials.
Yeah.
Can I shit on Chris Isaac again?
Do it.
Yeah, he sucks.
So like,
Lay it on.
something that I was laughing at was in that scene where he has this epiphany. His friend kills himself, which leads him to have some sort of like fucking shallow realization about the temporary nature of life and how you need to like go seek the truth. Sucks. His eyes are so wetted with water.
Yeah, when he gets
And
back
I
in
was
the car.
laughing. So that made me laugh. Like he pulls over the car and like the shot is like him pulling up in front of the camera basically, and because he just learned about his friend dying, and because Chris Isaac can't act, so they just clearly like just sprayed water onto his face.
Bertolucci's like, somebody get a spritzer bottle
Yeah,
over
man.
here, please.
But this is a moment where like there's not a lot. There's no substance. Both parents are completely just flaccid nothings. But Chris Isaac could have sold this better. This is a moment to be emotional.
And if there's any vibe Chris Isaac seems to carry about, it's certainly a moodiness and like a
Chris Isaac seems catatonic.
Yeah,
Their relationship seems so awful. They're just so asleep at the wheel, and I guess like maybe that was like some kind of like vague direction Bertolucci could have given.
Well, I
because
mean,
they're not,
everything
like,
in America is just like monochromatic and bleak.
Yeah.
But then when they like just when they're having their fun little backpack adventure in Bhutan, he doesn't get better. He just kind of like
he sort of smirks a
he
little
kind of
more.
smirks and creeps around and just watches a bunch of shit and is still very passive and is just like, I'm so glad my son is in a funny little robe with a hat now.
Yeah, and he's not sold on the philosophy either. For somebody that's supposed to be having like a spiritual sea change in their heart after finding out their friend
Fonda's
Evan
just
kills
forgotten.
himself.
Even
Oh yeah,
though
Bridget
she
Fonda
was-
they just leave at home.
She was the one that showed any kind of like
Yeah.
initial interest in the concept of like theologically, based belief, not new atheism.
Yeah, another
Guys,
movie fix. Make it a single mom.
Yes, I was about to say
And
that.
Bridget
Yeah.
Fonda's the one that goes there because she's better actress, better actor than Chris Isaac. I'm already slightly forgetting his name. That's how lame he is. And then just have them go together because it makes more sense. Anyway, she's the one who's introduced to the monks in the first place. There's
Right.
already a rapport built up a few scenes earlier.
Yeah.
It's like why take the character that is so despicable?
And also,
because
again,
he needs to learn because it's propaganda.
Well, but she could learn too. If you want, it could still be propaganda and just have it be her instead.
have her. Okay, look.
Yeah.
Here's my fix for the movie. Again, because this is a PG family film.
Yeah.
Don't have.
Don't be boring.
Don't have the like the deciding factor for them like going to Bhutan be the suicide of the dad's business partner. Have it just be something as simple as like
Family style.
Just make it as something as simple as she's a single mom and she just is like has been like maybe Jesse has been like struggling like with school or just like having a tough time with like aspects of his life, and she's just like has been really trying to figure out like what's best for him.
Yeah.
And he really seems to like have some sort of like
connection to this.
Connection to these monks, and seem more engaged in this than another aspects of his life. And she's like, you know what? I've tried so much. Maybe we'll just go on this trip. Maybe it might, like, even though I don't believe in this, maybe it might be good for us.
Oh, hey, here. Maybe also she's a single mother, but it's because his father died. And he's like a little bit obsessed with death. And that way we can add in the whole like, you know, impermanence, reincarnation, you know, chain of being kind of thing.
Actually, your dad might be the squirrel you saw in the park when you were playing basketball.
That I'm holding. Yeah,
your dad
like
is that ant you just stepped on.
But don't worry, because he'll come back
now
as like maybe an owl or something.
Or an apple.
Who
that
knows?
you can eat.
It's all one, baby. I spilled the tea, it goes in other cups.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, the human body is the cup, but the soul
because
is the
it's so
tea.
weird because when they're in Bhutan later on, Jesse the kid, he meets the two other kids who are also potential reincarnated versions of Lama Dorje, and again, he doesn't meet the first one. I'm looking at this now for an hour and 20 minutes into this movie.
Yeah.
It's a horribly paced film.
Well, they don't reveal that there's potential other candidates until a little later.
And I thought it was a trick.
And then he meets the second one like 10 minutes later, and these three kids again fitting like just like the general formula for like, you know, a 90s family movie. These three kids should be like this tight-knit trio that should meet much earlier on in the movie.
Yeah.
And they should bond on their strange, surreal having
adventure.
Been chosen for a candidacy of being like a split reincarnation of Lama Dorje.
Because the kids I enjoy the moment when Jesse gives one his Game Boy.
Yeah.
And but then there's like these odd scenes where and then that kid's brother takes the Game Boy and runs away.
Yeah.
And it seems like, ooh, this could be like a little like adventurous scene where he's like now suddenly he gets separated from his dad. Maybe his dad had been there with him and wasn't being like a total deadbeat.
Yeah, the dad could have been a good parent in that scene.
And instead they like, you know, have this chase through the city. And eventually, and instead what just happens is the brother, the other like potential kid, just gets it back and is like, "Oop, my brother's like an annoying kid.
Yeah.
I got it back. It's over."
The like I was thinking, because another thing that they hint at but don't follow through on every time is because the movie's not subtle, like you were saying, even just with this color scheme, like there's what seemed to be just going to just be direct parallels between the story of the Buddha and like the kind of like corollary experiences that this kid's having, where like he's lived in like this wealthy house on a hill and like his parents are very protective, and this new, you know, source of information comes and like threatens him. So that scene with the Game Boy, I thought was gonna be him like seeing people suffering. I literally thought it was gonna be like the like moment the Buddha has,
right,
where he
runs
sees
through
like
the
the
village
elderly,
finally.
He goes to like a
sick.
third world country.
Yeah,
and
because they had the same people like stirring or whatever. They're doing like image quotation from before. They're doing like callbacks to that exact moment.
Yeah, there was one guy that was like, his feet were like attached to two ropes, and he was just swinging. I was so unclear what.
Oh
like,
yeah,
it
just
was
like
a game. He was just swinging up and down.
He
like
had fire too.
Yeah, what
it
was
cool.
going on with that?
I don't know. It was cool.
How do you
though.
do that and not pass out with a G-force?
I also liked the aesthetics that Keanu Buddha hangs out with. One of them's has his hands are all clenched up because he's just been raising them, which is something you're supposed to do. And the fingernails grew through his hands out the other side.
Oh,
of
I've
his
seen
hands.
pictures of that in real life.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Do you remember when we used to get like the Guinness Book of World Records?
Oh,
They would
I
open
know
up,
where you're going.
And there was the fucking guy who was longest fingernails
longest
in the world,
fingernails,
and,
yeah.
and they showed you a picture, and yeah, he kept his hands clasped for so long that his fingers, the skin of his fingers, fused into the skin of his own palm, and they would run down, and
Do you remember that Wild Boys episode where
Yes, I remember what you're talking about
Chris
already.
Pontius and Steve-O or whatever,
They pour a little water down the length of the fingernail, right?
they pour beer on his hand
Beer.
and it like runs down his long ass fingernails, and Steve-O's obviously just drinking it and throwing up. Classic religious,
Classic Wild Boys.
classic Wild Boys.
That's
dude.
my Wild Boys right there.
Wilder Boys. Wild, I don't know,
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what is interesting about this movie too? I was a little thrown off course. The movie ends up being just sort of like a sort of promotion of the Buddha tale and like a little kid's realization of that, or a family's realization of that. But actually what I thought the dramatic crux of this movie was going to be, and for a long time I was like, this is actually kind of interesting, at the very least slow, but it's building up to this decision, which is thought they were gonna have to make, which is like, if our son is the reincarnated version of Lama Dorje. Lama Dorje? Yeah.
Do we leave him there?
What are the monks going to do? Do the monks require then that he remain at the monastery with them and grow up there and serve as the new master? Like, are the parents realizing that as they're agreeing to take the kid to Bhutan? And I was like, it's actually kind of like an interesting and point to use as the denouement of the movie.
Yeah,
but
that was my main question throughout. That was the thing I was most interested in. And they just don't deliver on that question.
They don't deliver at all. So they have these other candidates, this little boy whose name is Raju.
Oh, Raju.
And
yeah.
a young girl whose name is Gita.
Yeah.
Who's
And-
totally the Hermione of the group.
Yeah, and so they're all three
she's such
potential
a
candidates.
headstrong, just know-it-all, but she's got a sweetheart, you know?
Yeah, they're three potential candidates for being the reincarnated version, and the movie ends with the Tibetan monks realizing that all three of them are different aspects of Lama Dorje's original
That's right.
And this is
personality.
after some very long, very slow scenes at the monastery.
Yeah, where they like ask him to pick out a hat they like.
Or
Very
like,
much
for
like
instance,
the Trinity.
Yeah.
but like there's this
The
one
Matrix. And also the Holy Trinity.
Morpheus.
But like again, I'm like, who is this movie even for? Because if this is
Very
like
good question, Pat.
if this is a movie for kids, there'll be like a scene that's just one of the monks meditating and just there thinking, and it'll just cut to just various like statues around the room, and Chris Isaac kind of like steps into the doorway and like looks at him.
Yeah.
And then
I like to look at the statues.
and that's the scene. And
I mean,
so-
the monk meditates himself to death.
I mean, that does happen.
He does some
But-
fucking death metal meditating. Just like, dun, 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 dun.
But you'll have these slow, pun intended, meditative scenes.
Right.
Well, I think that's-
just
isn't
like I feel like kids would like lose their minds. They're watching
Yeah,
it.
they
They'd be like,
would.
"What? I don't care about this. No. So I want to watch
The Game
the
Boy.
Amazing Panda Adventure again."
Well, nothing about this. I was watching this. I didn't even think about 90s kids movies because, like,
I did the whole time.
nothing about this read to me as something geared towards children at all.
I watched this as a Bertolucci movie, so I was
Yeah.
kind of had like Last Tango in Paris in the back
Yeah,
of my mind while I was watching
I was
this.
thinking about
I
like
was like, I
weird
guess maybe there'll be
psychosexual rape movie or whatever.
I was like, Last
incest.
Emperor and Last Tango were the two that I had seen.
Yeah,
and I was
Dreamers
just like,
and Last Tango.
I was like, somebody's got to get fucked by the end of this.
See,
I don't understand.
I mean, that was what I went into it thinking,
Yeah.
and then I kept with the sort of storybook sequences with Keanu.
Right.
I kept thinking of A Little Princess,
which is I haven't seen that.
which
movie.
is a great movie.
Yeah.
Scorching hot take. Alfonso Cuarón, good at making movies.
good. Y Te Amo También, one of my all-time favorite films. Love
Yeah,
this guy.
A Little Princess was one that I actually saw as a kid and was
Really?
like, this is good. And then I revisited it, I don't know, maybe like 5 years ago, and was like, oh wow, yeah, it's great.
Still good, baby.
And like Lubeski shot it and everything. Like,
nice. Yeah, so they got like a good team working.
yeah,
there.
like a really like wonderful children's film, and that does have these like flashbacks or like storybook sequences to like.
Would you say that A Little Princess basically does what this movie's attempting to do, but is the good version of it?
Well, there's no.
It's a hard one
There's
to
no
say.
Buddhism.
There's no
There
Buddhism,
is-
but all I mean by that is that the little girl. I mean, you've seen the movie, I haven't, so I might be
it's all
speaking
set
out
in
of
like
turn.
an orphanage.
It's at an orphanage.
It's not like she's going to India.
Does she learn like her life lessons through these stories though? Is that what the movie does?
Not really.
Okay, so it's not a good analogy.
It's largely like I
Alright.
think like her father was like she thinks her father like was killed or
Killed
something
in
like
the
that.
war, right?
And I think she has these books about India, and so that she like kind of escapes into like these fantasy worlds because her own life has become so horrible.
Got it.
And
So it's not the best analogy for Little Buddha.
It's not.
Okay.
But I was
Very, like
remi-
Pan's Labyrinthy almost though. Like
Yeah.
someone trying to escape a miserable situation
Well, hey, Del Toro and Cuarón, best buds.
Best
into
buds.
delusion.
I love that friendship.
Yeah.
Inarritu must bum them both out though when he hangs out with them.
Hey,
he
guys.
he just has a huge scarf around his neck, and he's just like, well, it's like they're in the middle of the summer just trying to hang out,
All
like
of a
have a
sudden you
barbecue.
just hear the Ryoichi Sakamoto music starting to come. It's like, oh, he's
Da,
coming.
da, 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 da. Oh shit,
guys,
Is that Bibo no Azuara or whatever, like echoing in the
Alf-
background?
Alfonso, you did an 8-minute take. Well, I did a 120-minute take.
Yeah.
Also, my film is about human suffering.
Suffering. It is a comedy only on the surface level. It is indeed truly a
Indeed,
tragedy
you
about.
peel that back the layers and you see only sad.
Did you notice the alternate title to Birdman? It's the true title that I wished for. What was that
me.
movie called again? The other
The
ti-
unexpected virtue of ignorance,
Yeah,
or something like
come
that.
on, dude.
You know,
Ah,
see, Cypher.
Just call it Birdman.
Yeah.
Call it Cypher the movie.
And Cypher the movie. Oh, honestly, I thought this at the time, and I still think it. Inarritu was on the short list of directors to make the second Hunger Games movie, and I still think he should have done that.
That would have been pretty
Would've been
cool.
fun.
I
Probably.
hated the first Hunger Games movie, and then I never
You
watched
hated it?
I hated it.
Why?
I watched
it's
it-
fine.
I was so bored. I watched that movie and I was so
You saw
bored.
all the 50 Shades of Grey movies.
Those movies are sexy. There's a huge
the
difference.
first
Pat.
Hunger, okay, the first Hunger Games movie is fine.
You have to admit they're different.
They're not- I don't think it's good to compare those movies.
Yeah, they're both based on like hugely popular best-selling books, and like
That's it though. That's where the similarities end.
I mean it's like I assume you haven't seen the Twilight movies.
I saw the first one. Like a
Yeah.
lot of these series, I think I saw the first
Twilight
one.
movie. That's
It's
a bad
bad. That's
movie.
really bad.
First Hunger Games movie is fine.
I just remember being so
the
bored.
second
That's
one,
all I'm
okay,
saying.
whatever. I'm
Don't
sorry.
yuck
I'm
Jake's
sorry it's not in
yum.
the Criterion collection.
Don't yuck Jake's yum.
It's not a fail compilation video
Sorry,
either.
I will constantly make fun of Jake for like just not watching popular things.
No, I do like
I
popular
know.
things. This is what's crazy.
Yeah,
I'm
don't
being
think we're-
misjudged here. This is
You
not
are
very
character
Buddhist of everybody.
assassination.
Yeah.
All I'm getting at
So
is
my
that,
client is saying that you besmirched his
Thank you.
character?
is that
I'm the Long
think,
Island guy
I
now.
think Inarritu needs to climb out of his own asshole
Yeah.
and make like a populist film
Yeah.
where because he keeps being rewarded, from my opinion, making things that suck to watch.
Yeah.
I think The Revenant is just like
Revenant
like-
is hilarious.
We talked about
no,
this.
You like it.
No. We I think we all agree, like The Revenant, or me and Matt at least, where The Revenant an hour in suddenly turns into a comedy because
it
it gets
does.
so excessive.
it just breaks some
Something
barrier
breaks in the
breaks
audience.
in your
I think
brain.
the bear scene is unintentionally funny, and then especially the part where he falls off the cliff.
Oh my
That's
god.
where
It's
it
really
breaks.
funny.
That's where it breaks and
But,
suddenly just gets funny.
But it's just like I think he's very skilled at certain things, and I think and he's putting all of that skill to work, making testaments to like what a great filmmaker he
Yeah,
is.
it's not cool.
And I think
It's not cool.
I like the only movie of his that I like is Amores Perros.
It's a great movie.
Yeah,
I remember liking Babel when it came out.
I liked it when it came out.
It's heavy.
I haven't
man.
seen it
It's
in a
too
while, though.
heavy-handed.
and
I'm sure it probably is.
Yeah, like revisiting it's because all his movies, because he just keeps piling it on.
Yeah.
and he can't stop. And
It's like imagine if Haneke was like a sap, like a sentimental sap.
Yeah.
It's just like these like miserable thought experiments about like one specific shitty thing, but then without even just like the weird clinician philosophy aspect of Haneke. It's just like you know what I
Well,
mean?
that's the thing, like Haneke will make a movie about like one like sad miserable thing.
Yeah.
And Inarritu will be like, yeah, but what if it was about like 7 miserable, depressing things happening
What if it
all
was
at
like
the same time?
the whirl?
And they connect.
Yeah. Or even like Birdman annoys me because I feel like on paper that is like a fun dark comedy about just like the behind the scenes stuff with this like self-indulgent play. But then that wasn't enough for him.
Yeah.
He had like the
But it ain't enough.
making that movie all as one shot serves no purpose. It serves no purpose because it would make sense if it all stayed in Michael Keaton's perspective, but it leaves his perspective and just like continues being one shot while it goes over to like other characters having their own stuff going on. I'm like, it's only one shot so that he could prove that it's all one shot.
My favorite part of
But if he had made a Hunger Games movie, he would have been required to work within these certain parameters that I think would have he would have put all his skill to work, but in service of something that was not just his own like masturbatory exercise.
Yeah.
And it would have been his most entertaining movie. And that's what he needs to do. But you know what? No, he made The Revenant, and somehow it still made $500 million, which blows my mind. So he's just gonna keep making these movies.
You're so mad.
That annoy me forever.
All I'm saying is that I bet
we got
you,
Pat heated.
Yeah, we did.
I did not expect that.
All I'm trying to say is that I bet when like Guillermo del Toro and Alfonso Cuarón hang out without Iñárritu, they talk some shit behind his back.
Of
They're just
course,
like, dude. Man, now we can finally just cut loose and
Dude,
like
let's just have a couple
little bit.
cervezas and just fucking chill.
Yeah, because you know what? Because Alfonso Cuarón made a Harry Potter movie.
Yeah, exactly.
He wasn't too good for that.
He did a Harry Potter, which is like, at the time, the currency of the realm was Potter. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that's true.
Birdie bots and freaking wands and the
It was
Balrog.
like-
I don't need the Balrog. Is that what you just said?
That's it. It's just
Get
like
your references straight, bro.
It was
like-
a joke.
I know. I was also joking.
exactly.
That's okay.
So my favorite part of this movie was...
Okay, wait.
Don't know. And
You're
don't-
the Patrick of the podcast
don't
now.
but don't acknowledge it and make it okay. Is the best part of the whole movie is when the triumvirate of little kids are like doing their fun little gangs, like, oh, look at this odd grouping of like the three parts aspects of the previous llama.
Yeah.
But like they go and they have basically they like trip balls and have a hallucination where they see the Buddha during like the trippiest like part of
It's probably my favorite part of the whole movie.
of like the story of the Buddha, which is like basically the Buddha's version of the wandering in the desert that Jesus did, where
And the temptation by
and
the
the
devil.
temptations.
The equivalent of the devil.
what is the
Yeah.
name of that freaking demon that's trying to get him to like have sex or drink
I don't know. That
water?
was crazy. Yeah, let me look up in the movie.
Mr.
real quick.
Research.
But this is where the visuals just become really fun. You get
I mean, that
the
whole
image will show you of the dopey smile.
Right. But that
Mara is
Mara.
a demon representing the ego.
Okay.
And
But
that
that-
is like the equivalent, the satanic equivalent, I suppose. for-
Gotcha.
for
But that
Buddhism.
whole like army,
Yeah.
with like their flaming arrows,
Yeah.
that like arrive like out of the mist,
Yeah.
that Keanu is just like sitting there staring down.
cool.
Honestly, it reminded me of Bram Stoker's Dracula.
It
Oh,
did.
yeah,
it
sorta.
did.
Yeah, and I feel and that's what. This is where Storaro really gets to cut loose.
Pat,
and
tell
just-
us a Vittorio Storaro, if you will, about this cinematographer for Little Buddha.
I mean,
Yeah.
I could, but Matt, did you want to keep talking about this section?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh yes. Just that it was my favorite, and that I thought some like this is what made me think that the opposite. You know, after watching it from you, which was like, while narratively it might have been more fun, more sensible and coherent if like the family was emphasized. Part of me was like, I just want some like straight up like mythologically psychedelic just telling of the Buddha tale in like by like a big budget, like because they do that with like the Monkey King and stuff in like Chinese myths. Like there's a lot of like
Yeah.
funding for like these weird live action like bonkers movies for that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And so like so like then you have these women that try and tempt him, but then he like is not having it, and then they get like turned into like ashes, and it's actually pretty creepy.
Dude, the visuals for this
Mara
whole
like
sequence.
destroys
They're
them, and he gets
wild.
pissed, and then like you know he pulls himself out of this like pool of water and has that architect line.
Yeah.
And then like a whole army tries to
That's
shoot
also
him.
very impressive, just like him pulling himself out of this water. And they have this one shot, and I was trying to figure out how they did it, where the camera moves and Keanu is like holding him like a duplicate of himself by the arm.
It's pretty good. Yeah, for the time.
It is, which is funny because there is. Matt, I'll let you go back to what you were saying like momentarily. There's this one insane early 90s example of like crazy visual effects.
Yeah.
Where you have this one monk in Seattle explaining this dream that he had, and you have this house materializing, and it just
I forgot about this.
it's just like this there's like no house, and then you see this like wiggling shape in the air, and then it becomes a house.
Yeah.
Well, you also have the wild, corny ass effects of at some point Keanu is just sitting and Mara has created a giant ocean and he's shooting fireballs at him and they're being like
It's the same scene.
they're being deflected.
Yeah.
And it's just like it looks terrible. It's very funny. It's fun.
That one
Yeah.
to me didn't seem as terrible because it was just like that's all they could do at the time, but it was still like being done with skill.
Right.
Like the whole like, you know,
Wiggle
weird
house.
dream house appearing. That seemed like a thing that like, again, this is the same year as Jurassic Park. Like that's just like
We had
like,
the technology.
Like even like the design or like the idea of what they wanted to happen would never look good. It was just
Yeah.
a stupid visual idea from the very beginning.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's totally on Bertolucci's shoulders for being like that. Yes.
But so this was my favorite part. This had some of the funniest Keanu moments. This was had the most comedy and visual like engagement for me. And this was
Right.
this is so deep. This movie, like, I can't emphasize enough. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes. It's
very
so
long.
long.
The Australian cut.
The Australian cut.
Yeah.
Which is mostly probably because they just held on that fucking sunset and the bowl in the water, which took too long.
By the way, there's a bowl in this movie, but it's really not worth talking about.
Yeah. Let's just
But
leave
just
the bowl
that
out of
sentence alone makes sense, right? There's a bowl in this movie, but it's not worth talking about.
I think it makes sense.
So yeah, like that's where you get like the end though, kind of like Keanu. He becomes the Buddha. He has a big, you know, emanating sphere of like light come
Peace and
around
serenity
him,
or
and he's a taint. You just attained it.
I didn't want to say the joke, but I was thinking of that joke the entire time. Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls. Oh God, there's a great scene in this movie that just kept calling back to that because Ace Ventura in that movie at the beginning, he tries to save a raccoon
In
and
a
doesn't
parody
save-
of Cliffhanger, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the raccoon falls into its death, and then he renounces, you know, all earthly
worldly-
goods
yeah.
and retreats to a Tibetan monastery, I guess.
I saw this movie once as a child, and this is like all that and the rhinoceros scene. That's all I remember from the movie.
But like one of my favorite jokes from that movie is literally what you just said. There's like a scene because the joke is that the monks all hate
They
Ace
hate
Ventura.
Ace Ventura.
And
They want him
to
out, but they
fucking
can't
leave.
because of their like vows of like being nice. and
Yeah.
stuff.
So finally, this like reporter shows up and he like needs Ace Ventura to help him with something, the main plot of the movie. And the monks are like, yes, you should go with them. You should go with them. And he's like, but master, I've yet to achieve full spiritual and purity like of oneness or whatever. And the monk just goes, there, you just attained it. And he's like, what? And he's like, just now, you attained it. It's so funny. Like, it's just so dumb.
And then he's like, here, take the medallion.
He's
to
like, but I
prove-"
haven't received the medallion of to signify
And he's
this
like, take
attainment."
mine. And he's like, master, this took you 80 years to achieve. I don't like it anymore.
So stupid.
So I did start
wow,
to...
Steve Oedekerk, guys.
He's genius.
It's like we
No.
like him.
Yeah, or something.
I know we just basically just did a script
Sorry.
read, but
I was so off track.
I will say that my
Of
brain
course.
did just sort of start to just think about that movie
Yeah.
during portions of this movie because I was just laughing thinking about another movie.
Well, our brains are poisoned by a stupider movie that, like, it's a disservice to say
No,
it's
it's a better
stupider.
movie.
It's a better movie. It's funnier. You must
more
be the
cultural
Monopoly guy.
Okay, Jake, come on.
Anyways, but
So, yeah, the
but you
Buddha's
have
done.
Yeah, Buddha's
Shutting
done.
it down, Jake.
Can I talk about Storaro?
Please.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Storaro, please.
this movie is shot by Vittorio Storaro, who is one of the great cinematographers ever.
Yeah.
He shot the majority of Bertolucci's movies. Not
Really?
everyone, but I think from at least The Conformist onward.
The Conformist. Okay.
He even like
Conformist is awesome.
in 1970 also shot The Bird with the Crystal Plumage by Dario Argento that year. But
very
like
nice.
you know, he's shooting like Apocalypse Now. He shot just about all the movies that Warren Beatty directed. From like Reds onward, like Dick Tracy, even Bulworth.
Got it.
But he's great. I think he's won 3 Oscars for cinematography.
Okay.
But he's also a funny guy who is what you could call, or what you might call, pretentious.
A crank.
And a thing in college, my friend Jason, who we would make movies together, he was always my cinematographer, and he kind of introduced me to the weirder aspects of Storaro, such as a trilogy of books he wrote about cinematography. They cost $300.
But if you read them, you're the best.
Maybe, but let me just tell you
Guaranteed.
the titles of his trilogy of books. So the overall title is Storaro, Writing with Light.
Right.
Damn.
Book 1 is called Journey with Light. Woo! No, buckle up, guys. Book 2 is called Chromatic Emotion.
Get up.
And book 3 is The Equilibrium of Elements.
Triple kill.
What?
And so
You just turned into a chemistry professor halfway
Damn,
through.
I know.
That is some high octane fucking pretension right there.
in the 90s, Storaro he started working less and less on like Hollywood productions. He would still shoot Bertolucci movies, and he would still shoot Warren Beatty movies, but then pretty much nothing else. Like he has very few English language movies made
Beatty or Bert, and that's it.
made in the 90s.
That's it.
But then in 98, okay, guys, this is what I love.
Yeah.
In 98, he created his own aspect ratio called Univisium. And from then on, he would not shoot movies that were not shot in Univisium. And so you get a weird filmography where he shoots like the 2000 sci-fi miniseries adaptation of Dune.
Honestly, one of the more faithful adaptations out there.
But
I
it's
had no
also-
idea that was a Storaro.
It's
shot
also
film.
weird to go from like Apocalypse Now and Bertolucci and Warren Beatty movies to a sci-fi miniseries.
Yes.
And
He shot Dominion prequel to The Exorcist.
he shot the Exorcist prequel.
That's in. What did you say it's called?
Univisium.
Univisium.
And then he basically did not shoot any English language movies until he did, starting in 2016, a couple Woody Allen movies.
Which ones?
Cafe Society and Wonder Wheel.
Damn.
and
some really good ones.
And other stuff coming out, like A Rainy Day in New York and Rifkin's Festival.
Yeah,
It sounds like he's now just his collaborator.
well, the thing that
Two old cranks.
the thing
Yeah.
that Woody Allen does, not to get into like, Woody Allen is always like a discussion.
it's not-
who gives a shit?
But a thing
not worth getting into.
But to me, an amusing thing about
Yeah.
just like later day Woody Allen is just that all of his movies in like the 2000s, he's working with like the best cinematographers in the world. But there's movies about like people talking in rooms, and
Yeah.
usually you'll be like, wait, Darius Kanji shot that?
Yeah.
I couldn't tell. I will say I've seen Cafe Society, and you notice from like the opening shot of like, oh man, someone interesting shot this movie because a lot of colors going on.
Yeah.
There's like
it's
visual.
vastly different from this
Yeah,
stuff.
it really is. But
People are just trying to get in. It's like all like aging, like it's almost just like people are just trying to get it in before the person dies,
right. But the thing about Storaro that interests me is he does seem like one of these rare cinematographers that has such a huge ego that he really needs to, like, his collaborations largely seem to be like, you have to let me do what I want. I will not like you're hiring me because you like my work and you want me to make your movie like look the way I make movies look.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I'm not gonna like follow your orders.
Yeah.
It's like I'm gonna shoot in my aspect ratio. I'm gonna use whatever crazy colors I want to use.
It's my big aspect ratio, and I'm going to shoot it now.
Thank you. But like even like
My aspect ratio it's ready.
It's the
I
aperture
warned
is
you.
wide open.
It's
and
wide
ready
open.
to-
It's hard. It's ready.
But Coppola has talked about like with Apocalypse Now for certain sequence he would be just like, Vittorio, do your thing. Just like
Yeah.
do whatever you want.
I like
Continue
dope
on,
stuff. What is
Vittorio.
it like? I like cool stuff and I make dope shit.
Oh, no. My life is dope and I do dope shit.
Yeah, that's what he is.
Yeah.
He's just like a cranky old
How
man
old
version
is
of that.
Vittorio at this moment?
He's probably fairly old now.
I think he and Bertolucci are both. They're both born in like 1940, 1941.
Yeah.
But Storaro's just he's funny to me because he just could be like, you know what? I don't want to work with any of you anymore.
Is that what he sounds like?
Just like that. He's from.
You know what? I'm done. You sound like Martin Scorsese just then, actually. You know what?
They never worked together.
No, I know, but you sound like...
No. I mean, it's interesting because like Storaro worked with Coppola on like a few things.
Big snub.
Also, I will say that
Maybe they didn't get along.
going through his filmography, the Storaro movie that I want to see, he shot the 80s fantasy film Lady Hawk that Richard Donner directed, which seems like an outlier in his filmography.
What is that about? Girl Hawk?
It's I'm not sure. It's some fantasy movie.
I'm pulling up Lady Hawk.
Is it like the Owls of Ghoul?
It's Matthew Broderick, Rutger Hauer, and Michelle Pfeiffer.
Whoa.
And the story is about a young thief who unwillingly gets involved with a warrior and his lady that are hunted by the Bishop of Aquila. And he comes to know about the couple's past in secret. He finds himself determined to help them overcome the bishop's oppressions, both in arms and in the form of a demonic curse.
Whoa, cool.
Wait.
Is there orcs?
Yo, this sounds cool, dude.
Yeah, this sounds cool, dude.
It was during that same era when like Legend came out.
I'm trying to watch
And
Lady Hawk.
It's Matthew Broderick is the main character.
Oh my God!
What the hell,
The
dude?
Broderick, Matthew
Yo,
Broderick.
Broderick.
I bet he's the warrior. Thinking about how he.
No,
looks.
his character's
He's the
name is
thief.
the Mouse. He's the thief, and he's called the Mouse.
Okay,
He's quite the opposite.
That makes sense.
Yep. But yeah, anyway, Storaro to me is a funny guy, and
Yeah.
I'm always like his work always looks great, and but I just like the idea of him probably being like, Seattle, it will be blue.
Yeah.
Or it will be blue.
There you go. Now or yes.
Yeah.
A
It's
rare
me, Vittorio. Seattle, it'll be all blue.
battle. Welcome to Univision.
Univision.
Yeah. So I guess he's just.
He's there and he's
Oh,
doing
you
what
don't
he
want to use
wanted
the
to do.
Univision? Then the
this-
fuck are you?
Yeah, you
This
can
is
go fuck
pre.
yourself.
This is pre-Univisium.
You're sucking a dick and picking up boots. The thing is, like, part of me has to just sort of like tip the cap and respect someone that's that committed to.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like I tend to actually really like crank weirdos who like
Double
you
down on their
aspire to be
strange-
one.
Yeah.
Yes, it would be amazing. The thing is, I'm not talented in almost anything to merit that. You know what I mean? It's like you'd really have to work to earn demanding directors to a specific
That's
aspect
true.
ratio. But I do like the sort of the attitude.
Yeah. Just that. I mean, there's a tying it back again. There's almost like a Zen mastery of the work. You know, you put in the hours, and
Zen,
there's
like
an
little Buddha.
uncompromising.
Yeah, like Buddha.
like little Buddha, like the movie we're talking about, the philosophy.
Zen Buddhism.
Yes, and
Mahayana Buddhism.
there is something admirable about an uncompromising, like, just vision to whatever art form or
Totally.
Or work
that's,
that
that's
you
why
do.
That's why something like fucking
Jiro Dreams of Sushi, why people fucking loved that movie. Because you're literally watching a guy that's taking this thing that we buy, like, in little plastic containers, like in a 7-Eleven, and eat quickly. We're watching, like, a guy,
Hope
like,
you don't get
literally
sick.
making its life, not get diarrhea.
Yeah.
Make it his life's work to, like, perfect the art of just that one small thing. And
but
there's
that
always
food has
something-
always been about that a little bit. We don't
A
need to
little
start
bit.
talking about sushi, but
Jiro Dreams of Sushi.
Guys,
It's a
what's
good
the-
movie.
What's the best sushi in New York? You know what? Actually, nothing,
I'm not
we've
good
ever
at-
had. There's
I got-
definitely some super expensive, like masterful specialty sushi.
That's $1,000.
yeah, I'm trying to eat
Exactly.
some puffer fish or something, or what is it?
Fugu, I think.
Fugu.
probably in like an unmarked like a doorway that you have to like know about from the
Yeah.
right person.
Yeah. Honestly, I got food poisoning from sushi 2 years ago and haven't had it since because
You haven't?
because it's ruined. Like
I've eaten
for
sushi
me.
around you so many times. So often
Yeah.
when we come to your apartment, I order sushi.
Well, I won't get sick if I watch somebody else.
No,
eat it, but
I know, but like because I've been around you and sushi at the same time,
You
I just
think
like
that I've eaten it somehow.
like in my head, like you have also had sushi, but I
Yeah.
guess no.
Dude,
Dude,
I
ate
got the
chicken
worst
nuggets-
stomach bug.
I had chicken
after some
nuggets when I
sushi.
was like 7 for every day for one summer that I just threw up. Like one day I was just like, "Ugh," and it was like only
just
nuggets,
breadcrumbs
yeah,
and nuggets,
and
yeah.
I literally like like those spongy shitty chicken microwave chicken nuggets and like
Yeah.
barbecue sauce turn my fucking stomach to this day.
Oh,
I'm
really? You still
31 years
can't?
old. At 7 years old, I had it. Yeah.
Wow.
So taste aversion is real.
It is real.
Yeah.
I had like a 7-year gap where I couldn't drink red wine because I got sick in
A lot of people have that kind of alcohol
Yeah.
experience where there's
Yeah.
that one demon alcohol that it's like they broke their their fast with and had way too much of, like gin or something.
Oh,
random.
I overwined it and then it was over. The whole day was over.
And you puke up blood. It
yeah,
looks like,
it
which
looks
is crazy.
terrible. It looks
Yeah.
like you're hemorrhaging from the inside.
Yeah, like eating beets.
Yeah.
Throwing those up.
yeah, and peeing
Yeah.
blood and
pooping blood.
pooping blood.
Yeah,
It was
nothing's
red
like
all
blood
over.
coming out of places that shouldn't come out. Oh, can I throw out
Moving on.
another rewrite idea for Little Buddha?
yeah, what's up?
yeah, totally.
Even though it would involve significantly changing the that sort of like near climactic scene
Yeah.
with the kids kind of watching, having their little like vision trip scene, and like watching Keanu with all this. I kind of think maybe in this movie the story of like the storybook with, I guess, Siddhartha.
Yeah.
Should have been maybe just like one sequence, or maybe way less of it.
Yeah.
I do wonder if it needed to be like almost half the movie, especially when it's so simplified and it is treated as like, because they're just reading like a children's storybook.
Right. It's like a picture book, literally.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there needs to be a separation. The problem is the movie as it stands now, obviously, because it relies on all of the pieces together, what ends up happening is every piece, when you think about the scenes themselves, you're like, that would never hold up on its own as its own movie. You need to flesh it out way more.
Well, the weird thing is, like, it seems like the very, like, straightforward, I guess, mission of this film seemed to be just to, like, show the practical application of, like, Buddhism to these people now in this, like, context where it seems they're so far removed from ever needing to consider it, but then how it, like, applies and helps them in their own life. That's, like, basically...
And at the end, Bridget Fonda is pregnant.
And at the end, Bridget Fonda's pregnant, and she
Yeah.
holds her belly, and it's like it's the same thing that Siddhartha, his mom did with the same shot where her belly rises into the frame and she like touches it, and
Pat.
sort of facilely like referencing something for no real like deep reason, just kind of tricking you by going like, I saw that before, like,
And by the way,
eternal recurrence. Ooh.
being born again.
Yeah,
I don't know.
again.
But the little kid, I mentioned this earlier, they decide that all three of them share individual aspects of the Buddha. So, okay, now they're all Lama Dorje in some way. Do they now, all three of them, have to live in the monastery? No. What happens is they all go back to their respective homes. Like, little boy is allowed to go back to Seattle with Chris Isaac.
Yeah, Jesse just goes back.
And then they sort of scatter the ashes of Lama Dorje. Or no, I'm sorry, scatter the ashes of the one that went to go look for him in the first place.
Yeah, the one who meditates to death.
Yeah, who meditates to death. They scatter it into the water, but all the kid's takeaway is that they're like, now the tenets of Buddhism, go out and be compassionate. I was like, they're not even gonna like roll him into working at the Dharma Corporation in Seattle or anything.
And Jesse was
like that.
already like a nice kid.
Yeah,
It's
he
not
wasn't
like,
mean.
Right. I mean, honestly, it feels like, again, this would be a different movie, but I feel like at the end, he should have to make some choice about, like, is he going to stay there in Bhutan or will he return home? Like, give the kid a tough decision to make.
Yeah, there's no tough decisions.
Instead, this kid is just kind of like happily going along with everything that comes his way.
Yeah.
And, his parents are just like, sure, yeah, you can go to this foreign country now.
Yeah.
And there are no obstacles.
Yeah, and I guess both parents now just agree. They're like, yes, our child, who just what seems like a week earlier we just thought was a normal little boy, is now also the reincarnated form of this Tibetan teacher.
Can we also, I just want to point out, because it would be a shame to do this whole episode and not mention it, in one of the early story flashback scenes to like the story of Siddhartha, there's this brief sequence where it looks like a woman is making out with a baby elephant.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
there's a big fake elephant.
It's like Siddhartha's mother, I believe.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being the little actor inside the elephant?
And there it is. Yeah, there's this one.
Scene?
And don't worry,
great.
on our like Twitter and Instagram, and I'll put her on Reddit too.
Oh, we got a lot of screenshots.
There are some
of
very
this.
funny, like, out of context images that you could pull from this film. I will give it that.
Yeah. Well, also, just lots of beautiful images.
True.
Specifically, the stuff that's set in like Bhutan are in the Siddhartha sequences.
Yeah.
Because then again, like one of the things that Bertolucci and Storaro have experience shooting, like they did like The Last Emperor. They already did like Ancient China. They're good at shooting these like beautiful, lavish, like outdoor sequences in these foreign countries where you have like flower petals raining from the sky, like hundreds of extras, that kind of thing. Storaro uses sunlight so well.
Yeah.
Really well, yeah.
So yeah, so like it's a movie that looks great.
But it leaves you feeling empty because it's devoid of like. It's so funny because like I'm seeing how like every critique I could see could be twisted by like a very defensive Bertolucci into like, yes, but it's form matching function. It's the Buddhism, and it's, you know, it just washes over you.
You are
and
not supposed to be attached to
everyone
any
is-
of the characters,
yeah,
just
at
as you're not
peace.
supposed to attach to the earthly things of this
Conflict,
life.
in fact, does not exist. Life is suffering, and therefore,
But maybe Bertolucci didn't even care about Buddhism is also the other crazy aspect
but he
of
didn't
this.
give a
Like,
shit. It seems like
maybe,
and
who
just
knows?
like the movie just kind of happens to you. And then
Yeah.
like
And-
ends, and you're like, there was some sumptuous imagery, but it makes me feel cheated even more than if it was
It's
just
flat.
shitty.
And again, this is not like, I feel this is not designed to be a difficult, like, obtuse art film.
No.
This is a movie about some Americans in an unexpected situation who travel to a foreign country and have like a little bit of an adventure.
But as the main main guy is dying,
Yeah.
as he's meditating hardcore to his death, it gets art filmy. That's like the most art film aspect. Like
it's a little art filmy the whole way through. I mean,
but
even
that's like the most so because that's like the most quiet and like kind of like they're just kind of like, I don't know. It's like a sequence. It's not of like vignettes of like him meditating and then
That's
like people
true,
doing
yeah.
stuff.
Right, and again, this just gets back to the thing that I said at the beginning. I think one of the problems with this movie is it doesn't really pick up perspective.
No.
It kind of jumps between like these different types of movies.
Yeah.
And I think it needs
because
to...
it's all one, Pat.
Oh.
See?
It's like Babel.
Yes.
I get what you guys are doing. I don't think any of our listeners do.
Yeah, watch the end of Babel, guys.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Beautiful movie.
Do not watch the Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu movie, Beautiful.
Oh, don't watch Beautiful. Yeah,
Because
sorry.
that,
Beautiful.
that movie, it looks nice. It is a miserable slog.
Yeah.
Hey, it's me, the freaking Long Island guy. I love Babel. I love watching that movie.
A Long Island guy who loves Iñárritu would be
Dude, I
great.
fucking cried like a bitch at the end of that movie, dude.
21 grams.
21 grams?
Amore Sparrows.
Fucking water for chocolate. I love it.
What is
Anyway,
water for chocolate?
It's not him.
That's not Iñárritu.
I'm just
Who
saying
did that?
movies that are like, that character wouldn't have typically
Oh, yeah.
Also, this movie is very strange. Yeah, it feels a little bit like
I had a
like I
bad
said, like a
time.
CCD movie.
Yeah.
It's like did I just watch this to get like
I
a
don't
Buddhism
know what
101?
CCD movies are.
Just imagine going to Sunday school and like
I
watching.
didn't go to Sunday
But
school.
just imagine is what I'm asking you to do.
No, Patrick.
Sunday school is always one of those things that's always been like just this weird curiosity to me, because in elementary school, all these other kids would go to it and they'd
Right.
talk about it, and I would always be like, I don't go to church. I don't.
Okay,
I don't
so
know
let
what that
me
is.
tighten up my
Like,
analogy.
honestly, everything I know about Sunday school, I've pretty much learned from The Simpsons.
Okay.
Okay, that's a bad.
So imagine being at school, I guess, right? And you're in your homeroom class, and
Honestly, school on a Sunday sounds bad.
yeah,
already off to a bad start.
yeah. I mean,
With
I don't
Pat.
remember particularly enjoying being at school on Sundays, but
Remember watching a movie about a tree that became the cross?
that was depressing.
That
I
shit was
bawled.
so sad.
Oh my god.
I liked the parts in this when the tree bends down to Siddhartha.
Me too. I like that.
That was
Yeah.
nice.
Cool.
More of that cool tree.
And then she gives birth in a very odd way.
Standing up.
She stands up and holds onto the tree and then kind of
Yeah.
sings a song.
I think that's how you're
as the baby
supposed. I
falls
think that's
out.
how you're supposed
Just
to
like
give
what
birth.
a badass way to do it.
Yeah,
In
and it's
the
also
same way
good
that,
to
like-
loosen your shoulders.
Yeah,
and stuff.
everyone else is just like laying down.
It's
No,
like a
not her.
hyperextension thing
She did it
at the
herself.
gym.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
there's like people are like, oh, the squatty potty, and you're shitting wrong your whole life.
Yeah,
That's
your
why you're
feet
more
need to
prone
be
to
up.
hemorrhoids and stuff. I think it's the same principle.
Guys,
You're
I
birthing
shit
wrong.
with my feet over my head.
and it just falls out. I don't even push a little.
I hang like a bat on an inversion table, and I just barely clear my nose as the shit falls.
it's like
Okay,
dropping
okay,
something
this
down
is-
an elevator shaft. It just falls out, dude.
Okay, this is too gross now. Well, guys,
Sorry.
Do we have more to say about this movie?
No. It's all it's
All
all
right, end
it's
the
all
episode.
impermanent,
Bye,
you know?
everyone.
Absolutely not. Little Buddha was fine. It was I think it's a bad movie, but there's a lot that as I was watching it scene to scene, I found kind of interesting at worst and like vaguely enjoyable at best.
I
but
just think it's like
it didn't offend me
It's
or
interesting
anything.
all the ways that it doesn't work.
Yes,
where it's
yeah.
like these are talented people making a thing that I feel like is like broken from the start. because of their approach to it.
Right.
And again, it sounds so weird to say, like, instead of being like, you know, a beautiful transcendent Bertolucci movie, I kind of wish this was just like a PG family film from Warner Brothers about a kid going on an adventure to
Yeah.
Bhutan.
I wanted a more-
honestly call it Adventure to Bhutan.
Baby
Train to
Buddha or
Bhutan.
something.
So close to the other movie about zombies.
That's a
that I
good
wanna talk
movie.
about. It is a good movie.
Well, the thing is,
Just watch The Last Emperor. Is what I would say.
Just
Or
watch
like-
Train
or
to
watch-
Busan. It's has nothing to do with this at all.
not-
It's
honestly-
much better.
Just watch Jungle to Jungle. Like, fuck it. Yeah.
Fuck it, dude. Watch Ace Ventura When Nature Calls.
Yeah. Or honestly, A Little Princess.
There we go. That's the better
And these
analogy.
are our,
yeah.
these are our recommendations. I feel like
Yep.
this is a nice place
This is
to
our
And
watching
don't
stop
watch
talking.
anything by Inuritu. Don't
That's
do
not
it.
true. No,
That's up to the
Pat.
viewer to decide.
I'm being mean
Pat
to
has a
him.
bone to pick, and Yuritu
And to be
beat
fair-
him up
in the street one
in
time.
the street one time.
It's not like I'm beating up on a guy because he's so successful and won back-to-back Best Director Oscars, so
I
he's
know.
doing just fine.
He's probably drinking like wine right
Like, he's
now.
probably
and
drinking-
looking
and
at
that
a
wine
huge
costs
window.
$1,000.
He's probably drinking child's blood.
Let's be real.
Let's be real.
And swirling it and looking at the legs.
He's probably a child murderer. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah,
You
honestly.
heard it here first, gang. In your E2. Oh my god. That's what he's doing with that Revenant
Crazy
money
Days
right
and
now.
Nights is just
Yeah.
like, hey.
This is that's slander. I'm sorry.
Can you imagine if we got sued for that?
That'd be so
That'd
funny.
be
come on the
wild.
show.
We would podcast
Tell us
our
about Keanu.
we would podcast our legal proceedings. It'd be really fun.
Yeah. Oh, the story that I don't think I finished telling about Keanu and,
sorry,
and
yeah.
the interview that I watched with him.
Yeah, let's wrap on Keanu.
Is about he's asked about playing this figure, and he talks about being on the plane on his way to India to shoot this scene, and a flight attendant asks him what he's going to shoot, and he goes, "Oh, I'm going to play Siddhartha," and the Indian flight attendant like looks at him and gets very confused and goes, "But like what? You aren't
are
Indian."
you.
yeah,
yeah.
you're Keanu Reeves,
and
dude.
then Keanu telling the story doesn't have a response to that, and it's just like, well, and it's
Party on, dude. Yeah.
It was just it's a 2-minute interview. We'll post it on the Twitter as well, guys. You gotta follow us on Twitter at Keanu
You're not-
Podcast.
you're not-
You gots to.
It'd be so funny, like, but you're not Indian. Dun, 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 dun.
Keanu just orders a whiskey.
Produced by Larry
Hey, it's
David,
like a
baby.
Yeah, it was just funny because I
Keanu
was
hits the emergency exit of the plane. He gets sucked out. He's like, and don't have to deal
You
with
just
that
point
question.
break, like, just drops into the.
but like I was watching this on the subway, and I was like I was so tense. I was like, oh my god, he's gonna address or give it like a reason for his casting in this role, and then he just doesn't have one.
Yeah.
Like a guy objects to it, and he doesn't have a response.
Dude, I don't know. Life's crazy.
Yeah, I would love to ask Keanu about this now.
It is what it is, you know? It's none of my business, but.
Yeah.
But
Keanu,
also-
come on the pod.
It's pretty wild that you look at the string of directors he's working with.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to read one quote from an interview that I found with Keanu. It's about Little Buddha. Honestly, mostly he doesn't talk that much about Little Buddha. He does talk about fasting for the part to like lose all that
Right,
weight.
Yeah, he is
Because
very skinny. We mentioned this earlier, but
he's skinny throughout, but there's a part when the character fasts and he loses more weight, and he's extra skinny in that scene.
Yeah.
And I can't. Sorry, you'll say your quote too, but I can't. I also do sort of vaguely remember. Just there's a lot of articles been written interviewing Keanu recently, and I have to say I don't know the specific one, but I do have a vague recollection that he speaks slightly positively, if briefly, about his experience on Little Buddha. Maybe just haven't been happy gotten the chance to work with Bertolucci, but
Yeah,
I don't think he remembers this movie as a huge embarrassment. Is what I'm
Really,
Because it's not, because no
It's
one
not.
knows
he says
he did it.
His line is, first of all, I got to meet the most incredible person in Bernardo Bertolucci. But he's going from like Coppola to Bertolucci, like this early in his career.
Yeah, he's lucking out. It's cool.
Yo, my man's having a good time.
Okay, wait, guys, this is an incredible quote.
Yeah.
I'd always admired his films. He told me the story of Little Buddha, and he was glowing. It was like he was pickled in spiritual blood.
What?
Wowzers.
He was so enthusiastic about the story and said
Blood,
he
huh?
wanted to make children come and see it.
So Bertolucci clearly
was trying
does-
to make a movie
yeah.
for children, but the
As for the kids.
Later
Last
on,
Tango in Paris,
but
for the kids.
But okay, remember this is '93.
Yeah.
later on in the interview, he's asked, what was your most challenging role to date? And Keanu replies, my failure in Dracula. Totally, completely. The accent wasn't that bad, though. So this is just like a year later, and he's already referring to how he was a total failure in Dracula.
He's buying the hype, though.
Yeah, he probably just was reading too much of his criticism.
He probably
and hate.
was, but at the same time, like, so immediately, he's like, he has this perspective on that role.
Right. And he's like, I guess what I'll do next is...
He's not even like
Shakespeare.
I feel like you very like how often do you actually hear an actor a year after he actually, it's interesting, he talks here a bunch about like doing Shakespeare and about like the Shakespeare aspect of My Own Private Idaho, but it's like, how often do you hear an actor a year out from like a movie being released being like, yeah, I was really bad in that?
Hey, I mean, he's notoriously a humble, down-to-earth, smart guy. Nobody said a bad word about him. It's, you know.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? He's
and
good boy.
Bertolucci, pickled in spiritual blood.
That is a fucked up way to
Let's
describe
leave on
a man.
that note.
Okay, so anyway, that was Little Buddha. I would not rush out to see it. A weird movie.
Yeah.
Very strange.
Yeah.
What do we got coming up next week?
Oh, gosh. Freaked?
No.
Freaked?
One sec. I'm looking up the spreadsheet. This is really
What
great
do we
podcast
got? Yeah,
content
saying,
right
I'm looking at the spreadsheet. I'm looking at the spreadsheet. Oh, God.
No, guys, Jake, Freaked was last week.
Whoops. Whoopsie
Guys, next week. Speed!
Hell yes. Go faster on bus.
Yeah, can't stop Sandra Bullock.
Exactly. Little Buddha,
Inarritu,
a slow
Corleone.
movie. Speed, not a slow movie.
Not slow at all.
Anyway, so you gotta come back here to listen to that
You
one.
got to come back. Come on.
And for now,
Let's go.
We have to stop because we're starting to say dumb shit.
it's true.
No.
I'll just wrap up the episode. Thank you, Brian Bertolucci, for our theme song. Thank you to Emma Logson for our artwork. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Keanu Podcast. Talk about the episodes in our subreddit, r/Thrillums. What else we got? Email us if you want. KeanuPodcast@gmail.com. It does help if you rate and review us on Apple Podcasts.
And if you really helps.
If you send some artwork to the Gmail, I might feature it.
Yeah.
you
Who
will.
knows?
You will.
I don't. Well, what if it's like fucked up?
Doesn't. Okay.
don't.
I'm just saying, don't just give it a blanket.
No
yes.
graphic nudity.
I am pretty. Let's say I am very lenient.
Very lenient. So send us any artwork you want. Jake, you want to plug anything?
Yeah, you can follow me on Vero at The Real JT.
Thanks,
Real
Jake.
stuff.
Thanks, Jake. And be excellent to each other.
Yeah, indeed.